Everybody, welcome back earlier than anticipated to the Calling Indianapolis. We're back for the top 8. The judges are like, we want to go. And we were like, yep.
We're definitely ready. Yeah, of course.
We're in it.
Here the whole time. Nothing not just about to leave.
No, we're here. So we've got our graphic coming up here to talk about the key cards. Before the key cards, we're talking about the top 8. Let's take a look at what we are breaking down here.
So we have an Oldhim in... We have a guaranteed Oldhim in top 4 in both top 4 matches. And over here we have 2 Oldhim mirrors, Oldhim versus Iyslander, and then Iyslander versus Briar. So, for those of us who are potentially maybe hoping for fewer Oldhims going on, well, we know that one of the Iylanders and one of the Briars is definitely going to be eliminated over here. So for the feature match we have for you today is going to be Michael Hamilton versus Lucas Oswald on that Iyslander versus Oldhim. That we did just see this matchup happen. It was Lucas Oswald against Alexander Vore on a different take on Iyslander, but now we have back to the classic, the man who pioneered this Iyslander list, the more wounded bull fighting spirit tempo Iyslander going up against Lucas Oswald.
Absolutely, and with Michael Hamilton giving the camera a little wave there. Lucas Oswald, as we talked about last time, he has been playing in a lot of these events. He's gotten very, very close to this top 8 and often had trouble kind of getting over the hump. And what better reward for finally getting there than facing the world championship the world champion in your first game of top 8. So it looks like the players are getting ready to go. We're going to dive into this game. And so what's going to be really interesting here, did Michael Hamilton get a chance to see any of the game with Alexander Vore, to talk to him at all, to understand what Mr. Oswald is going to be doing, to seeing the stalagmite point to the strategy that Lucas is going to be playing towards. And is Michael Hamilton, we know he's got the classic list. We're not going to be guessing about any Aether Wildfires or any Sigils of Permafrost. We're going to be, we know this Iyslander list at this point, so it'll be interesting to see if it has a little more success against this brand of Oldhim.
He definitely knows what he's up against. Michael Hamilton, known for studying what the opponents have done previously. When the deck lists are open, you will see him with his head down, just poring over the opponent's deck list to try and figure out exactly what they're up to. Now, we talked about this in the previous match. The Frostbite from the Stalagmite didn't end up being relevant in the previous match because Alexander Vore was not running the Scar for Scars. However, Michael Hamilton over here opening with a Scar for a Scar. This is turn 2 of the game. Lucas Oswald did go first. So Michael Hamilton's first turn of the game, he opens the Scar for a Scar. Now, he knew the Stalag was there, of course, so he has a plan to deal with this Frostbite.
But he also, this is the first turn of the game for him, and he wasn't really pressured, right? So he has more cards to work with if he needs to pitch a card. Sometimes Iyslander still has trouble working with a 4-card hand, even when they're not being taxed by any kind of a Frostbite. So with this hand, he was under no pressure, so he is still able to come in and utilize a pretty effective turn. He's going to come in with the Scar for Scar. He's going to take a card away with the Winner's Bite, and then he's going to push a couple of arcane damage that's going to be, I think, soaked up by the Null Rune gloves and boots. And then he's going to set up an arsenal of his own.
So Hamilton definitely prepared for a Frostbite. He worked the math out perfectly. He said, I know I'm going to get a Frostbite. I'm going to play 0 cost after that and use my 2 floating to Waning Moon you. Now, critically, Michael Hamilton was the higher seed going into this round, which means he chose to go second here. And that speaks a lot to what his plan is into this matchup. He's saying, you are trying to tempo me? Well, in that case, I'm going to choose to go second, and I'm going to tempo you first.
That is a very good point. So we've got this Command and Conquer being played by Lucas. We'll see how Michael Hamilton wants to block if he does play out that Arsenal card in response. Interesting that in a funny way, it almost was like he baited out that Stalagmite. He had a really good way to effectively use the cards in his turn. And I know if I see a Scar for Scar, like, boom, I'm throwing a Frostbite on that as soon as I can. But that's normally more effective when they're working off the 3-card hands that Iyslander likes to work with. They'll play a card, pitch a card, play a second card, and they keep that card in their arsenal.
Definitely, and Hamilton there knew that the pummel wasn't being represented. He managed to get 2 cards from Lucas on his own turn, so he just said, all right, it's CNC, I'm just going to block 6, whereas if a pummel was being represented, we likely would have seen the Crown of Providence being used there. Now, Hamilton over here did see his How to Find Out very early on in the game. He saw it pitched, and this is his turn 2 of the game, so he's definitely very happy to see that. However, we have seen Lucas's game plan into Iyslander. We saw it against Alexander Vore. He wants to go quick. He wants to bonk Hamilton hard and fast, so let's see How to Find Out comes back and whether it does give Hamilton more value.
Absolutely. I mean, in some matchups, you don't want to see it early, and sometimes you do. He was still able to be less life than his opponent here, so that How to Find Out is, we're on the clock now. We're starting that ticker. See how much value just pitching a card can do. It's an expensive piece. It's a luxury piece, but it does. In the top 8 of a calling where every point of value can really matter, sometimes we look back to the 1 point of value gained off of How to Find Out.
Definitely, and Hamilton is the one responsible for these spikes and out of final prices because he's the one who popularized it.
The Zealous Belting is going to be coming in for 5 with Go again here.
Yep, and Lucas very effectively hiding what the follow-up is here, as opposed to something like Rouse the Ancients, where Hamilton can guess what the next card's going to be. Remember, in the previous game, we had the one critical moment where Alexander Vor blocked on his Zealous Belting and then found the follow-up Frostfang very awkward to deal with. So let's see how Hamilton plays around that.
Lucas is going to start off with a Winter's Bite of his own. Now this one, because it's not the red, is only going to require 1 card out of his hand, and we know that Iyslander can definitely utilize the rest of their pitch. So we'll see if he elects to do so or how he wants to respond to this.
So he's pitching red. He's opting to keep the Wounded Bull and a blue in his hand, so likely going to try and follow that up. But however, we know Lucas could potentially follow with a Frostfang here and push Michael Hamilton off that play that we know he wants to do. Looks like it's just going to be the hammer for 4, and Hamilton says, all right, I'm going to take this. I'm going to send back 8 at you.
Tunic's going to go up to 3, going to allow him to play a 2-cost out of his arsenal in the future and use the Tunic resource to come back in with the Waning Moon. But first, this is a Wounded Bull. It's coming in for 8.
So just a quick thought about the math over here and why this Hamilton list is so incredibly strong. On Lucas's turn, he used 4 cards to do Zealous Belting, Winter's Bite into the hammer. So from the 4 cards, he only represented 9 damage, and plus the Winter's Bite effect. Hamilton, with 2 cards, is representing 8. So, in effect, that 2 extra cards that Lucas used only came in for 1 more damage, and this is exactly why Hamilton really loves his Iyslander list, and why even after the bans, he's saying, no, I just straight up have better math than you.
Mm-hmm. Again, can you outmath the Math Lord? That's been the question this weekend. We've seen a couple Briars do it. Michael Hamilton most likely will be attempting to do it in a different way, but we shall see which addition, subtraction, division, and potentially multiplication reigns supreme.
Square roots.
It's been a while.
Straight up differentiation.
It has been a while.
So this looks like a Crown of Seeds activation on Lucas's main phase, and priority is currently on Hamilton's side to see how he's going to respond to that. Oh, this is brilliant. Now, normally blue Ice Veins, you typically don't bring into Oldhim because they sometimes can have very easy access to AB3. Maybe they just present the Lantern and have AB3, or, there's always the threat of Crown of Seeds. But Hamilton's had that parked in Arsenal, and he said, all right, the moment you activate your Crown of Seeds, you're only on AB2. This hit effect of this Ice Vein suddenly matters, and you can't stop it.
Yeah, that was before the damage prevention is actually able to be active on the stack. He's going to come in with the Aether Ice Vein.
Yep.
1 damage will be leaking through, which is going to cause the trigger of the effect to come in of first both the Insidious Chill and then the Aether Ice Vein effect.
So it looks like Lucas should have 1 floating. He paid 1 into the crown. Oh, unless he blocked 1 damage on the Ice Vein. Yep. And I believe that's a yellow Ice Vein being pitched by Hamilton here, saying, you know what, I still want to keep some threats in the deck. I know how grindy this matchup can go. So let's just keep that for later on.
Michael Hamilton saying, I'll take 4. Easy enough. Keeping 2 cards. Set up the pitch stack. As Lucas goes ahead and draws back up.
And we see the Hamilton classic here. He's saying, you know what, I don't need to always play out of my arsenal here. I know my hero ability incentivizes me to play from arsenal, but if my hand doesn't allow for it, I'm just not going to do it. He's not getting roped into forcing plays from arsenal.
Still going to leak 2. Blocking with the Command and Conquer.
Yeah, the moment Lucas saw that Hamilton was not representing an arsenal there, he chose to block with his CNC, because CNC for just vanilla 6, now we talked about the math, 2 card 6, terrible compared to the 2 card 8 that Hamilton has been presenting the whole game.
Significantly less effective.
However, Hamilton sacrificing the arsenal did open Lucas up to start this turn with the Tunic counter, because he knew for sure no Frostbite would come in and mess up his math. So he says, all right, you gave up your arsenal, I'll give up my CNC, but now I'm free to activate this Tunic and come at you with this fused Endless Winter. And we talked about this in a previous matchup. This can actually be quite tricky for Iyslander to deal with.
And when you play without an without an arsenal as Iyslander, often you are content if it lines up this way to block out with most of your hand and just pop a card in your arsenal, kind of maintain parity on the board state, maintain parity in the life, and then set yourself up for the future. So it looks as though even though this is fused, so this will represent some frostbites upon the blocking here, Michael Hamilton, most likely, you can see him kind of keeping that Frost Hex up. Looks like he did bring the Frost Hexes into the matchup, and he might be looking to arsenal it here.
Yeah, which is a very interesting choice because, as we talked about, Lucas is very clearly on the very aggressive tempo game plan. So setting up a Frost Hex can actually be quite a liability on the Iyslander side. But at the same time, if you block with too many of your Frost Hexes, now the Oldhim knows that the fatigue avenue is open to them. So you can't also just willy-nilly toss out of Frost Hexes to the graveyard because then Oldhim can just pivot to a defensive style, and now you're stuck. You don't have a good endgame for that.
And also critically, that's a big red attack that's going to the graveyard. That's not staying in the deck. That's not going to be representing 7 damage or go again with other red attacks. So he is having to utilize or lose some of his threats in order to once again, look at this. It's 26-26. We've talked about it when Iyslander's been on the stream before. This is what she wants to do. She wants to keep the life total pretty even, keep working her way down until she gets to utilize those Storm Striders for an extra turn.
Definitely. And depending on the texture of Lucas's hand here, we might see Michael Hamilton opt to use that Crown of Providence here to get rid of the Frost Hex. If he makes the call that playing that is too much of a tempo loss, he's just going to use it and just get the Frost Hex out of that. Keep it in the deck so that he's not open to getting fatigued out, but at the same time not commit to actually playing it.
It looks like he might have another one in his hand. So is this going to be fused is the question.
Looks like it wasn't, but Michael Hamilton did not pay for the Polar Blast, so it has Dominate regardless.
Yep. So we're going to represent some damage here, and in a funny way, I think that's a sync below there, so he's going to be able to block as efficiently as possible with the card in his hand, that's the only one he can use, and then he's going to take damage, but it's not like he's got the freedom of not having to make a choice. He has the cards in his hand because he has to take the damage from the Dominate, so that actually frees him up to play that Frost Hex out of his arsenal and decide what he wants to set up for next turn.
Okay, so it looks like he is opting to play these hexes out. Maybe he's saying, based on the previous game, we saw Lucas sometimes struggle with those 5-card hands from Oldhim, so he's saying, you know what? I'm going to let you have a couple of 5-card hands. I know you aren't the most efficient with them. And in the meantime, I've got this chill set up already. Here, take this Frost Hex, and I'm parking another one in my arsenal. And
electing also not to come in with the Waning Moon following that. It's looking like he's just going to play the second one. So he's really playing towards a game plan now. Again, these players are so good at reading the game and figuring out the avenue they want to take. But he's setting himself up to get there if it exists for him. He might still be able to just tempo and come in and do the classic Emeritus from the arsenal, but he's also setting himself up for that Ice Eternal 10 to 15 damage combo to close this game out. We haven't seen the energy potions. We haven't seen some of the ways to generate the resources needed, but with 2 Frost Hexes, his pathways have branched.
This could be a result of how the hands lined up, to be honest, because he did have a couple of all-blue hands, and if there was a red in there, we might have seen him opt to just pitch a Frost Hex and come in the big red attack. But since those are all blue, he made the call, all right, I'm just going to set this Hex up, and hopefully it buys me the value later on in the game.
And similarly, because that arsenal was not occupied for the Iyslander here, there was no threat of the Frostbite to interrupt this chain of E-Strike and E-Strike. So we're looking at 12 damage that Michael Hamilton's already at 15. He's got to find a way to stabilize, keep himself alive, again, as we just saw in the last game between these two heroes, keep himself alive to get to the point to finish this game out.
I'm getting a bit of deja vu here, Sam. We saw that exact line from Lucas in the previous game. E-Strike 5 into E-Strike 7. So Hamilton here now pitching that third and final Frost Hex, recognizing at 11 he just won't have the space to both cast it and get enough value out of it to warrant that loss. And so over here we see him coming with that big red attack that we talked about. Now again, he is open to the Ice React. Now let's see whether Lucas does the same play against Alexander Vor in the previous round, where he just blocks with the last block of Stalag, and then does an Ice React to make sure Michael Hamilton can't do any funky wizard things on his own turn.
Yeah, he really only Ice Reacted that one time last game, but it was disgustingly effective.
It was pivotal. It was absolutely amazing.
And Michael Hamilton was kind of forced, because of all the damage he's been taking, into this line. And to create the opportunity for himself to climb back into this game, sometimes you just have to look across at your opponent, look him in the eye and say, all right, you got it?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And between Striders and 2 Insidious Chill triggers still on the board, Hamilton's definitely not out of this.
Oh, absolutely.
He is getting closer at life total where he might be forced to be blocking soon with cards he does not want to block with. Remember, Aether Icewind, to actually use it, you do need to have 3 cards. The Icewind itself, the pitch card, and the fuse card.
Now here, this is 10 damage, but it's not fused. And at this point, with the 2 Frost Hexes, it's easier to block this type of attack out. You're not facing the Dominate pressure. I mean, it's definitely easier when there's no Dominate. Mm-hmm. But you're able to, you're opened able to play something like this Cold Snap out of your arsenal, probably get the Waning Moon in. You know you're going to be able to block with 2 or 3 cards, leak a couple points of damage, but you're not dead. You know, the game still lives on, and you're able to continue to set yourself up to utilize that Insidious Chill like you just talked about. And if he's not able to pay for this Frostbite, that also represents 2 more damage.
Yeah, the value from his Cold Snap is absolutely nuts. We've already talked about how this is basically 4 points of value if you include the Frostbite as a tax effect. But Hamilton's getting 5 points of value out of this because of the 2 Frost Hexes that he set up. He's going to be able to Waning Moon for 3, and then the Frostbite is going to leak in another 2. Now, critically, Lucas did have an opportunity there to activate Tunic and use his Chrono Seeds in response to the Frostbite from the Cold Snap, which would have, the damage prevention from Chrono Seeds would have become effective at the end of the turn, or even potentially on the Waning Moon, and he would have had an additional card to potentially stop more AB. He's choosing not to, and that can potentially tell us that is an aggressive card that he has that he wants access to. Yep. Remember, we saw it last game. He kept that pummel in there for a long time, finally using it on the kill turn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's try and take a look at what Hamilton is thinking about. I see a Channel Lake Frigid,
Ice Eternal,
Brothers in Arms, and a Frosting, I believe. So he is able to cover this up completely, paying into the Brothers in Arms. And he will still have resources available to Waning Moon because of the Tunic counter.
And it looks like he is going to go ahead and make that exact line, utilizing the Tunic counter to get 3 resources here. 2 to go into the Waning Moon for 3 more damage. 1 to turn that Brothers in Arms into a 4 block and cover up that attack entirely, keeping himself able to throw a card in his arsenal for his next turn. So, as we're standing right now, Iyslander's doing exactly what she wants to do. We are at only a 4 life difference at this point after all that arcane damage.
I'm curious about that. Did Lucas take 10? Wasn't he at 25?
He didn't represent the 5 that he had taken from the Wounded Bull turn before, yeah.
Got it. Okay, yeah, so this looks this looks very good for Hamilton suddenly.
We're in a good position if we are Iyslander here. And if we are the Oldhim, how can we respond as best as possible? So this Frost Tank does have kind of an effect stapled onto it. You don't need to add to it with a pummel to get a disruptive effect.
Yes, but Lucas is representing the pummel. He has 2 cards remaining. He has that Arsenal card, which he did not Chrono Seeds away. He allowed it to be frozen because he just wants access to it. He leaked a couple of damage points to keep that there. Now, Hamilton knows this. However, he does have the Sink Below in hand. It's perfect timing to see a Sink Below.
Absolutely. And you saw, actually, Michael Hamilton kind of look up. His eyebrows went up a little bit, kind of like, okay, I see what you're doing. You got that Tunic resource. You got the 1 floating. You like that card in your arsenal, clearly. So let's see how he wants to try to sniff this one out. Maybe he's just going to use the Crown of Poverty to get that card out of his arsenal.
Qualifying for top 8 in first place.
Yep.
Looks like that is going to be what he does.
Exactly what he's doing. So that is just 1 card out of his hand, and he is blocking this Frostfang completely. And there we do see that pummel that Lucas was so, was treasuring so much.
Yeah. But that Sink Below is going to help. And the little head nod from Lucas, like, all right.
He's like, of course you had it. There's 3 of those in your deck, and
So we've seen 2 Sink Belows now, and they both have come at good times for the Iyslander here. One, when he was dominated and could only block with 1 card from hand, that is the best card to block with. A 4 block, I mean, it's the best one other than like his Brothers in Arms, but that requires a resource. And so here, this is going to very nicely clean up the Frostfang. That trigger is not going to hit the stack. Michael Hamilton is able to continue with 3 cards now.
So that's 2 energy potions and an Ice Vein. So no ice card in hand to fuse that Ice Vein. So a bit of an awkward hand. And can we try and get a gauge on what color that Ice Vein is?
Maybe a red.
Yeah, it could be a red, which means this would be a bit of an unfortunate hand from Hamilton's side. If he's priced into just playing energy potion, that's not what he wants to do.
And we'll see if he also wants to activate his Waning Moon, and it looks like he's going to go there. It's still push 2 damage, and that takes cards out of Lucas's hands now that he doesn't get to throw back at him. And he's going to set up, it looks like, the Ice Vein for himself for later, which points to the fact that it might be a blue.
Yeah. So Lucas, very hyper aware that he is close to the kill zone, especially with his energy potion on the field and 2 Frost Hexes on his side. You know that he's worried about an Ice Eternal.
Yeah.
Michael Hamilton could represent a very, very big arsenal with these Frost Hexes and the Chill trigger. He's representing a lot of damage. 13 is not a safe life point to be at.
Yeah, 11 to 13, again, this is right where the Iyslander wants you. They want you within that, 10 to 15 at the max range in order to utilize those incredibly powerful piece of equipment in Stormstriders. We'll see if this is enough pressure. This is Arouse the Ancients. It is going to satisfy the clause from the cards in hand, giving it +7 and go again. It looks like he has plenty of cards to pitch through a Frostbite here.
And Lucas revealing that red Frostfang there, which probably implies that that's not what he wants to follow up with.
Could also be part of the mind games of, are you going to respect this, or are you going to respect this 7 damage? Because, 7 + 5 is 12. You can't just take it all. I can do some math, Pankaj. I might not have been a computer science and physics major, but I can do 7 + 5.
How many times are you going to bring that up, man?
No. I'm just impressed by you, brother. I know how smart you are.
Right, you're the drama kid, though. I'm impressed by that. Your accents? You've inspired a whole host of cosplayers now. British Rhino coming at you with top hats and monocles.
Man. We'll have to have a gentleman's tea sometime.
It's almost like he's inviting Dorinthia to a duel. Like, nice.
Yes.
So Hamilton having a bit of a think here. Let's zoom into his hand and see what he's thinking about.
Yeah, we see a Scar for Scar, and we see an E-Strike. I think another Channel.
Yeah, so this is exactly the kind of hand he would love to be able to take damage to keep, because Scar for Scar into E-Strike for 7, that's 3-card 11. That's a really good, efficient hand, but with the damage he took earlier to set up this board state, looking a little rough.
Yeah, and unfortunately that Tunic counter is he's not able to pitch one from the Tunic counter into the Ironhide Gauntlet and save himself 2 more life here, so if he wants to utilize that, that's going to cost him a card from his hand.
So looking like he's lining up is a card to block or a card to pitch for potentially a blue Ice Vein Arsenal. We don't know what color that is. We didn't manage to get confirmation on what color that Arsenal card is. It looks like he's going to be leaking 4 here, going down to 7.
And we do have an update for you all regarding the games happening outside of this match in top 8. Briar lives on. MajiinBae taking out Tarek Patel. Some say Briar's worst matchup here, even after the ban. So for all of you hoping for Briar's demise, I regret to inform you, we thorn on yet, my friends.
In a way, Briar did meet her demise in losing out in the top, but it remains in this.
Remains, yeah, you got it.
So Lucas following up with a very strong attack, using the Tunic and then fusing with the Red Frostfang, coming in with the Endless Winter. So yeah, he was hiding the information. He's saying, you know what, I might be coming with this Red Frostfang, be prepared for that. Whoops, nope, here's the Endless Winter instead, arseling the Red Frostfang. And
Michael Hamilton here forced to just block as much as he can past the turn and try to look for the opportunity and the window to close this game out on his terms.
And I think given that Michael Hamilton did not respond with that Arsenal card on the previous turn when Lucas started with Arouse the Ancients, Lucas might be making the read here that Michael Hamilton does not have a blue in that arsenal. So he's saying, you know what, this might be a window, I'm going to go for it.
We saw at least one Glacial Footsteps in his hand. I don't think I see an ice card for him to fuse it with. So if he decides to throw that damage, it's just going to be vanilla without the Dominate.
Well, currently the Chrono Seas activation is on the stack, so he might draw into the ice card. Let's see whether he did.
Wait.
Oh.
So we'll be getting back to that hand cam momentarily. So this is going to just be a Glacial Footsteps, no fuse, representing a pummel.
And also representing lethal.
And also representing lethal. That's a very good point.
Also, at this point, he does have the Tunic up critically to use an Ironhide, so he could use Tunic to Ironhide and just put a 3-block in front of this. That obviously leaves him open to a pummel, but we might see him make the same call that Iyslander Vor did at the end of the last game, where he said, all right, if you have the pummel, I just lose. That is not something I can afford to play around at this stage in the game.
Awesome. We got the hand cam back up. Quick work by the wonderful man Sant, as always. You guys really have no idea how much work that dude has put in to make this all happen. He is a legend.
So Hamilton lining up what looks like potentially an ace block. We might also see the energy potion used in a similar fashion like what Iyslander Vor did in the previous game, where he just uses it to send a red attack on his own turn.
And critically, that Macho Grande, he elected to throw 10 vanilla rather than the 8 Dominate, because the 8 Dominate is just stapled onto that card. You can't get around it. Assuming that card, he was able to pitch for it.
Yeah, at the same time, this lets him keep an arsenal, because Macho Grande, that means he would need to maybe pitch this red Glacial Footsteps.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then Arsenal, at this stage in the game, remember, we talked about this, that Karna Seeds, if you have an Arsenal, it's like an energy potion on demand, which is very critical against a deck that still has 2 triggers of Acidic Chill left.
Yeah, and Michael Hamilton respecting some degree of pummel by blocking for 9, but also just maybe figuring at this point in the game like he doesn't want to take more damage. He's not at the point to take damage. Lucas is not quite where he wants to be in order to close this game out. He needs to find another way to chip some damage. He's going to float the Tunic resource on his own turn, activate the energy potion. This might be a big red attack. Or a red Aether.
It's that red Ice Vein fused with a red Winter's Bite, I believe. I don't think Hamilton runs the blue Winter's Bite. So while this is threatening Lucas a lot on this turn, Lucas has confirmation that Michael Hamilton will not be playing from his arsenal on his own turn. The only thing Lucas will need to be scared of on his own turn is that Striders, which is still very scary, but still, it is good confirmation for Lucas to have.
Yeah, and the most damage you can do with just the Striders without Metacarpus Nose. Granted that the Frost Hexes don't add to that, but if lethal is on the stack, would be, I think, 8, right, with the red Aether and the 3 from the Waning Moon.
Red Ice Vein, yes, with the Moon, which will also trigger the Insidious Chill if Michael Hamilton's able to fuse it.
Yeah, so this one is fused, so we're first going to have the Insidious Chill trigger on the stack, so it'll be interesting to see how Lucas wants to go about working through these triggers and then dealing with 5 arcane damage, and then the trigger from the Aether Ice Vein.
Yep, so it looks like he's responding with the Crown. Ooh, now this is slightly risky, which means that he won't have the Crown on his own turn, and that is his arsenal gone. Maybe he's saying, all right, if you're putting a red in your arsenal, I can sacrifice this Crown on my turn.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we see a red Endless Winter in his hand, along with an Enlightened Strike,
And
a Channel Lake Frigid, and a blue Thunderquake, I believe. So likely that one of these reds is just going to be pitched, is just going to be discarded to the chill. That's typically what you do when you have excess reds in your hand.
Now that Channel Lake Frigid, is it an attractive arsenal target, or do you worry that if you play out the the Channel Lake Frigid, the Iyslander tries to just kill you in response?
Yeah, at this kind of life total, that is definitely a viability. Then that is just 2 resources you've sunk into basically doing nothing. You're not even presenting damage, presenting something that Iyslander needs to care about. At the same time, having an arsenal is still good because, well, you have Crown of Seeds, so you kind of just want stuff in your arsenal.
Yeah.
So we did see the Endless Winter being discarded to the Insidious Chill. Now Lucas has 5 Arcane to deal with. The Crown of Seeds damage prevention is active right now, so he does have the playline of just taking 4 and then using the 2 float to pay for the Aether Ice Vein effect. Now, with Hamilton putting a red in his arsenal, we might see him just do that.
So we'll see how much damage he elects to take here. He got rid of the floating, so he prevented 3 of it, and then is going to have to respond now to the trigger. He's going to pitch the Channel Lake Frigid. So clearly, at this point, feeling like it's not worth trying to resolve one of those. He doesn't get to do it at instant speed.
Yeah.
He just got to play it out.
And I wonder whether you should draw a card for this or +2. +2, obviously threatening lethal, but draw a card giving him the arsenal, just giving him a bit more insurance against something like another fused Ice Vein.
Well, if that's an Emeritus Scolding, which I don't think it is.
It's the Red Winter's Bite.
Red Winter's Bite, right. We just saw it. So, and Lucas knows this, so he's feeling like he's doing the math in his head. He's
So, it looks like
5+3 as well.
it looks like he did choose draw a card there. He's giving Hamilton the window of opportunity. Hamilton only could have responded with Striders there. And drawing the card, giving himself the insurance for the Crown of Seeds, that additional, basically, energy portion. We keep coming back to this.
Yeah, well, it also, I mean, without AB3, it's another way to work through some of the damage.
Definitely. And I do believe we saw an Ice Vein in Hamilton's hand. Yes, it remains to be seen what color that is. Now, Ice Vein after this Red Winter's Bite, this could be the turning point.
Because if we can strip cards here, it's always, if as the Iyslander, you can strip cards on your own turn, and then you're going to draw up at the end of this, you have all the tempo, all the ways to come in, and here's another red Aether Ice Vein. Now, and Emeritus Scolding, such a good card to close the game up, but you needed to get the fuse off in order to not only get the Insidious Chill, but also get the damage trigger of the Aether Ice Vein. So even though the Emeritus Scolding represents 1 more point of damage than that Ice Bolt, you got to do it in this way.
So funnily enough, in this case, the Ice Bolt actually represents more damage than the Emeritus Scolding because of those 2 Frost Hexes. The Frostbite that Ice Bolt generates is going to be +2 damage. So Ice Bolt effectively going to come in for 5 unless Lucas can break that Frostbite on his own turn.
Absolutely, which is going to be tough when you're stripping all these cards.
Yeah. He will have Tunic Up going into his own turn, though, so if he can time it right, he could break the Frostbite with that Tunic, which is just a free thing. You just need to pay 1 when you have the Frostbite on you to activate the Tunic.
So we've resolved the Insidious Chill trigger with that Zealous Belting going to the yard. Here comes 5 Arcane on hit, discard a card or pay 2. He does have the 2 floating, but he knows if Michael Hamilton draws a damaging spell, that's going to be all she wrote. If you just elect to take the 5 here.
And this time he knows that Hamilton is putting a blue ice card in Arsenal, so that is going to be in addition to any damaging spell he potentially draws. Now, however, one thing though, these Wounded Bull lists do sometimes struggle at finding a good Stridus target on their own turn because they don't run any of the red damaging spells except for Aether Ice Veins, of which we've already seen 2. They aren't running like red Aether Hails or red Ice Bolts. So let's see if Hamilton manages to find one of the good Stridus targets. Another Emeritus Scolding would also be really good for him.
Absolutely. Lucas has all the information. He knows what's in the arsenal. I mean, all the information he could have. So it just depends on what Hamilton draws up here. I see a couple red attacks, so this might not be enough to completely close the game out.
Yep, and this is exactly what we were talking about. It looks like Hamilton did not find a good Stridus target. We see a Scar for a Scar, big red attack, Cold Snap, and that's not an Arctic Incarceration. I don't think he runs those cards, but it looks like another blue ice
Winter's
card.
Bite or something.
Oh, is that a chill? It might be an Insidious Chill. A little hard to tell, but
yeah, we'll figure it out. I mean, at this point, he just passes back. But the thing about it is these red attacks, while they don't let him kill his opponent on his opponent's turn, he does just get to come in with damage here. He's still lower in life, so this is going to represent damage. It's going to represent most likely blocking cards, and then every card that is blocked with is not going to be there to try to work through the arcane damage. So I think Michael Hamilton is absolutely in the driver's seat moving into the climactic turns of this game.
Definitely, and he is open to the Ice React here, plus this Frostbite. Now, if Lucas makes the read that Hamilton has a chunky red attack that he wants to send, he could block this out, create the Frostbite, and Ice React Hamilton, and that means he won't be able to come in with that Fighting Spirit. Let's see if Lucas opts to do that in the reaction step.
And he does.
He does.
Absolutely. So we've seen this young man has been incredibly disciplined and so prescient with when to use that Ice React. It's not, some Oldhims are a little trigger happy with that Ice React. It feels like such a powerful effect, but he has really identified at what point in the game it's the most effective. I'm very impressed with this high school junior here.
This is absolutely amazing. And now the red Winter's Bite coming in. Now Michael Hamilton did not want to do this with his turn. He really wanted to play that red Fighting Spirit. He was just wishing that his Tunic was up at this point, but unfortunately not. So he's priced into doing Winter's Bite, following up with a 2 damage Waning Moon, which still a very decent turn. I also think we saw pretty much this exact same play on his first turn of the game.
And look at the two players are having a laugh. You can tell it's always good when you can see in high level Flesh and Blood that the two players are clearly enjoying themselves.
Yep.
And I think, it's hard not to be impressed with Lucas here at the highest level. I mean, because this is it's not like, oh, wow, look at this kid. Like, he's just crushing it. These games have been unbelievably well played from him. Just the tight sequencing, incredible decision making up against the world champ. It's so cool to see.
Absolutely. So Lucas there blocked the 2 damage from Waning Moon, and with that 1 floating, activated his Chrono Seeds. So Michael Hamilton knows there is no Chrono Seeds activation on Lucas's turn now, but he does have a card in hand, and you always have to assume that that's a blue. Let's take a look if Hamilton has drawn into a Stridus target at this point. I think I see a blue Ice Bolt in there. So this is going to be time for some wizard math. Remember that blue Ice Bolt, even played off of Stridus, will generate that additional Frostbite from Iyslander's hero ability.
Yep. And he's doing the math. You can see him tapping the table. Did I win the game, or do I need to wait a couple more turns to most likely win the game?
Yep. So critically, Lucas does have the Tunic up. So he does have the option to break Frostbites on his own turn.
Yeah, there's most likely not. I think, Lucas is almost for sure past the turn or past priority, so there's not going to be a lethal attack on the stack that then Michael has the chance to respond to.
Yeah. Looks like Hamilton's going for it. We may not even activate Stridus here, even though...
Yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah, if he doesn't see a lethal, he's saying, all right, this is just basically 5 damage off... the Tunic's not up, so it's going to be 5 damage because of the Frostbite plus the 3 damage from Ice Bolt.
Because if that Ice Bolt's a fine enough arsenal target for your next turn, as long as you can find a way to cycle the cards out of your hand to draw into the blues you need. You don't want to draw a hand of all reds on the turn that you're hoping to finish the game.
Definitely. And with this big red attack in his hand, he's like, all right, even if I don't pop Stridus here, I still have amazing sequence on my own turn where I go big red attack into Arsenal and Ice Bolt. So it looks like Lucas just ate the 3 damage from the Ice Bolt, and now he has to deal with his Frostbite. He doesn't need to activate a Tunic. If that's a blue, he can just move to his end step and just pitch that blue to stop all the arcane damage from this Frostbite.
Still, he'll be out without an arsenal then. That once again is going to turn off the Crown of Seeds filtering. It's going to turn off the way to get more resources. It's going to turn off the damage prevention. Looks like he is just going to have to take it.
Looks like he takes the 2 damage. That makes us wonder whether that is just not a blue. Maybe he drew into a red off the Crown of Seeds that he did on Hamilton's turn. And here we go. Hamilton firmly in the driver's seat now.
And because he is now officially at a greater life point, this is just 7 damage. Again, now all of a sudden it's a lethal attack. This is the play pattern we've seen from Iyslander with this, especially with this prodigious player behind the wheel, of just finding the lines, being patient, and just utilizing, as you were talking about, the advantageous math and the hero ability of Iyslander to just work a very different kind of game of Flesh and Blood than we've seen. This is not exactly a combo deck. It's not really. It's a tempo deck. And we've seen tempo decks, of course, all throughout the history, but in this way, with this kind of hero ability, with this kind of interaction, interesting to see.
Again, Hamilton was open to the ice react there. Maybe Lucas didn't have it, or maybe he was saying, if I just keep doing this leaking 1 and ice reacting you, I'm not going to win.
Yeah.
So
Playing to not lose versus playing to win.
definitely. And Hamilton has drawn into the Emeritus Scolding, and we know he has that Ice Bolt in Arsenal. So
This is going to be all she wrote.
this very well could be, but he does need to do the math of the Crown of Seeds. That always trips up the wizard math. You always have to assume that they have a blue, that they're going to draw a blue from the Crown of Seeds. So even though Lucas uses 1 card in hand, he's representing 5 resources worth plus the tuning. That is 6 resources.
He's got the Emeritus Scolding,
Yes.
so that could be 4 damage. Potentially have 3 more damage coming in from the Ice Bolt, and 3 more. That's a total of 10.
So once again, this attack from Lucas, firstly, isn't even presenting lethal. We might see Hamilton just do what he did the previous turn cycle, where he says, all right, I'm going to block you, and I'm just going to keep playing this efficient tempo game. I'll block your attack and come in for 7 on my own. If you want to block this completely, you're giving me an extra card, or you're leaking 1, like we saw Lucas did on the previous Finals Fighting Spirit.
If the card in his arsenal is a pummel, he could be saying, no blocks, allow Lucas to go for the pummel if he has it, and then go for this line to maybe finish the game and just see all the information he can. But it looks like you're absolutely right. He's going to go to 1. He's not in any rush. Looks like this is going to be a Fine Dolls Fighting Spirit. Going to gain 2 life here, going up to 3.
Oh, no, this is still Lucas' turn.
Yeah, he's just doing it.
Yep.
I was going to say, the ultimate move is go down to 1 and then gain the life off the heart.
Yeah,
and
and the Fighting Spirit.
I was like...
Okay, and here we see the Emeritus coming out from hand. Now, when you see the Wizard player pop the Striders, you have to be really worried. They wouldn't do that unless they have done the math completely and know that you're dead. So Lucas responding with the Crown and likely passing priority to Michael Hamilton, see what he can do. Now, that is just 2 floating, and at 3 life, Lucas is basically just at 5 life now, while the Crown of Seeds is on the stack. And with that final Ice Bolt in his arsenal, it looks like Michael Hamilton is looking to end the game right here. And there we have it.
That's the game. Michael Hamilton taking down Lucas Oswald, moving on into top 4. What a run from Lucas. What a well-played game from both parties, and the world champ stays alive.
So it looks like our top 4 is going to be completely winter. We know MajiinBae won his match against Tariq Patel's Brian. He's on Iyslander. We just saw the other Iyslander make it, and the other 2 top 8 matches were Oldhim mirrors.
Yeah.
So 4 Ice Heroes, 2 Iylanders, 2 Oldhims in our top 4 here.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's cold in Indianapolis.
It's pretty cold.
So I think that's part of why, that could be what went on here. It's pretty impressive to see Michael Hamilton continue to dominate this game at the game's highest levels. And it's similarly impressive to see, a young buck, a rising star, and Lucas Oswald come in and put up a really good fight. I'm still impressed by the way he sequenced these last 2 games, the ice reacts, the disciplined use of the Crown of Seeds. So it's going to be fantastic to follow his journey moving forward. It will not be in this calling because we have a different outcome from this game as Michael Hamilton has moved on to the top 4.
Absolutely. Michael Hamilton looking to add yet another calling win to his repertoire. That man is just, PTS are just flowing out of him. He definitely has one now because of the top 8 of the calling, and he's unstoppable.
Yeah, those Red Winter's Bite did a lot. You keep Oldhim out of the ability to continuously use the resources on his turn, even without the Rampart of the Ram set with the Crown of Seeds and the AB. They're often wanting to use some of those extra resources, but the Winter's Bite Red says, I need a whole card from you, man. I need 3 resources or the card. So those tech pieces seem to be effective from Team Manorcast. It's exciting to see. That game it was interesting to see the difference in the decks from the two Icelanders, because we had two different outcomes. We had Lucas taking down Alexander Vors, Sigil of Permafrost, Ice and Howl Weathervane list, but the Classic Bulllander list proved to be too much for this. Because now, this list that we just saw looked to be very similar to the Oldhim list we've seen before, just without Winner's Whale.
Definitely.
And
Hamilton really showing us why he's just one of the most innovative deck builders around. A lot of people after the Hypothermia and Amulet of Iceband, they said, all right, let's bring in blue Winter Spites. And Hamilton's like, nah, you know what? This card's terrible. I want to play the red. And everyone's kind of shocked, like, wait, what's going on? And it just brings me back to when he suddenly showed up to US Nationals with the Wounded Bull. Everyone's like, wait, what are we facing here?
Yep. I think it is really, it speaks to, again, just the bannings that have just recently moved through the scene. And when you look at this game, because this game was very close, and this game came down to some very tight turns and to some, those sync belows were very important for Michael Hamilton. But when you look back at this last game and you think about those Titan Fist swings that Michael Hamilton pretty consistently was like, yeah, I'll take. Every one of those hits, if that had been a Frostbite, would have absolutely changed this game. If those Frostbites were allowed to, or were able to resolve and forcing Michael Hamilton, Iyslander doesn't want to play through Frostbites, right? So you really see that even with the strength of Oldhim here, that change in Winner's Bite has done a lot for the metagame.
Absolutely. And at this point, we do have an updated graphic for our top four, which we will be... Correction, we're going to have a break before our top four, and then that's when we will show you the graphic for top four. So stay tuned, and we'll be with you shortly.
Okay, hey everybody. Producer Mansant coming at you. This is the first time I think we're using this camera angle because it's set up with this graphic specifically, and we weren't ready to do the giveaways for so freaking long. But basically, hi, I'm over here in front of the ladies' room. Well, we've got some giveaways to try to pepper in and cover some of the time that these Oldhim mirrors are going to take, because that's the reality. There are 2 Oldhim mirrors still being played that we need to wait for. Joy. The 2 Icelanders did win, so the top 4 will always be Iyslander Oldhim, Iyslander Oldhim. The top 4 is guaranteed to look like that. And then the finals, who knows? Iyslander mirror? God, no, not Oldhim mirror, please. But Iyslander Oldhim again, that may just be the story of this top 8. Anyway, so to fill some time, let's get some giveaways going. Type Hamilton, as you see it, down here. I can't point over the graphic. Type Hamilton. Just as is, no caps, no exclamation points, no quotations. Basically, Dragon Shield has stepped in. Dragon Shield has been a long-term sponsor of the channel here, and sponsor of course, a number of players as well. Tarek Patel, who we had on stream. I think we didn't have Isaac Krupp, but Matt Rogers was on stream as well. They have Dragon Shield Pro Team. Well, I'm not part of the Pro Team, but I am part of their content creator organization. So they stepped in, and they've got a pretty cool deal for all the viewers here to kind of get around some of the international shipping issues that were coming up when I was doing this with physical product. So basically, I have some vouchers to give away that are legal for $20 worth of Dragon Shield product, plus free shipping. Now, it's only valid where there is Dragon Shield sleeves available, which right now is for NA and EU. So it's not quite international. You do have to be in NA or EU. But $20 is your choice of what sleeves you want with free shipping. It's a great deal. So, yep, let's have everyone keep entering in the chat. Keep typing Hamilton in the meantime. Hamilton. Just because some people might be watching it a little bit delayed. We're going to give this one quite a bit of time. I mean, we got nothing else to do. We're just waiting anyway. So I'm kind of just ahead over a monitor. This is funny. But yeah, hopefully you've all enjoyed it. The top 8 really came out as fast. They initially announced that top 8 was going to come back at 3:15, so we thought we had about an hour. And then apparently they said, never mind, because of the Oldhim mirrors, they might take forever. Let's just jump on it right now. So they started the top 8 like within maybe 10 minutes of announcing it. It was crazy. So we had to have our players on hold. They started a bit late. So I do hope the Oldhim mirrors are at least starting to finish. They've been playing for quite a bit of time now. I don't know. I haven't been able to go over and watch. But yeah, keep typing Hamilton, folks, because Hamilton's on his way to top 4 of Calling. Is he going to back-to-back win Calling Indy? And if he does, then does this mean he's just going to start back-to-back winning every other thing he's won? What, he's just going to be world champ again, like no contest? Man, that's scary stuff right there. We may just have the best Flesh and Blood player ever. Just ever possible, just is already amongst us. Look at him. He's an absolute beast. I was really rooting for Lucas, not going to lie. I like Lucas's build of Oldhim. It is more aggressive than we saw a lot of the other Oldhims, and I really kudos to still playing that way, because I think a lot of people fell back on that game plan. Without Winter's Wail, they couldn't do small hand disruption well enough. They just went for pure fatigue, and good God, is that boring. But it is effective, and who cares about how much fun you're having if you're in it to win? I mean, hey, I never will play that way. I'm always on Levi, aren't I? Or I guess maybe behind the booth these days. But hey, Fatigue Oldham's a real deck. It did really well across the weekend. But kudos to Lucas for not playing that way. Thought that was really cool to see. And I think isn't he like a Yu-Gi-Oh! National champion or something? I recognize the name from some other card game. I think someone in the chat said as well. So really cool to just see him play again. I hope you all enjoyed that match. And we'll try to never get an Oldhim v Oldhim on stream just for everyone's sanity. So let's do like another. We'll go to 3:25 at least on my time. So it's another 2 minutes before anyone is going to be drawn here for this winning. We're going to do 2 drawings in this batch. We're going to do 2 drawings after every top 8 game because we have 6. Actually, I can't do 6 on one hand. I don't know what that was. You can kind of do 6. In like Taiwan, this is 6. Anyway, what's up, Fino? Yeah, so we're going to do the drawing for 2 sets of winners. We've got 6 of these packets to give away. Just have about another minute before the drawing. So keep going. Spam Hamilton. Man, I feel bad now. Maybe it should have been Lucas or Oswald because he was great too. But we'll keep it easy. Hamilton's on the brain, isn't it?
Flesh and Blood is hard.
There you go. Thanks, Michael. He's with us. In the meantime, let's listen to some of these other soundboard effects that I never used all weekend but put a lot of time into.
Wow, Ethan, great moves. Keep it up. Proud of you.
Oh, thank you, Michelle Obama. That's so sweet of you. Of course, there's only like one Ethan in the world, right? It is me.
My personal favorite hero from Monarch, Leviah.
Now, see, that's the right way to say Leviah, folks. That's coming from the LSS dev, Jason Chung himself. My favorite one, and this one did get played a couple times, so I'm happy about it.
We don't talk about Starvo.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Ethnic Smoke for actually getting that whole thing produced. He wrote all the lyrics and then paid a professional singing quartet or whatever it was to get it all together. It was a fantastic video. So shout out to Don't Talk About Starvo, which we can, unfortunately, it's hard to spread the word about that song because we just can't talk about it, can't we? All right, let's go ahead and do one of the drawings. First drawing underway. It should pop up in the chat who the winner is, all right? Let's do number one winner here. We've got Jody Burney. Jody Burney has won the giveaway. Nightbot should be saying that in chat right now. So Jody, the instructions for what to do when you win, go ahead and type exclamation point winner, not just exclamation point winner in the chat as it says down there. And it'll give you some instructions to do for you to receive this prize, but congratulations. Now, like I said, stipulation has to be that you're either in NA or EU. Those are the only places where the Dragon Shield web shop exists. It's not available. Actually, I don't know what happens if you try to put in an Oceania address or, Asian address. Like, I don't know what happens to that part of the world, but I mean, hey, you can try it. The voucher is yours, though. Let's make sure you said something in chat. All right, Jody, I don't know if you saw that you won. Jody, I'm not seeing you drop a message in chat there and let us know that you accept this prize. Well, hopefully you do. So Jody Burney, let me just make sure that I'll type it in chat as well. Jody Burney, at Jody Burney, you won. Come on, Jody, I believe in you. Come on, Jody. Type exclamation point winner, Jody, and we can get you this prize. Anyway, I made my effort. This will it's obviously going to YouTube, so you can go timestamp this and go back and figure out who won. But we'll do the second giveaway now. Second giveaway. Here we go. Anthony Atkin, perhaps. Nightbot should be saying that you won the giveaway. Anthony, I'll just at you as well. You won. Anthony Aiken in the chat has won as well. So, unfortunately, there's nothing special that pops up on screen. This is all going to be in the chat where you find who won or what. So, I tagged you. Nightbot should have also tagged you. Go ahead, type winner, and that'll get you the information you need. I guess to be fair, you don't have to type winner. You can just see someone else type winner for you, and there you go. That'll give you the instructions. Just basically reach out to me on Discord so we can go ahead and get that to you. But huge shout out to Dragon Shield. Dragon Shield, longtime sponsor of the channel. I only really use Dragon Shield, mostly because of their custom sleeve option, which is oh so cool. I print all kinds of Leviah stuff out, and it's a lot of fun to just put a little bit of your own personal flair right there on your sleeves. But hey, at this point, they also make sleeves for a ton of Flesh and Blood heroes. I mean, they partner with LSS on that thing. Like, they're official. So you can probably find your favorite hero right there on the Dragon Shield shop. So that $20 voucher is yours, Jody and Anthony, to do whatever you want with. We're going to do another 2 giveaways after the next round. Actually, you know what? Let's scrap that plan. We want to make sure that we have time for the interview with the winner. So let's do 3 giveaways now, and then 3 giveaways at the end of top 4. That makes more sense, doesn't it? We're doing this live producing. All right, 3rd giveaway coming up. We'll wait 1 more minute because people are still typing Hamilton. So we'll give it 1 more minute, and we'll draw a 3rd person right now, and then another 3 next round. All right? And then long form interview with the winner, and then we can wrap this up and pack and all that. All right. That sounds good, right? Trying to make everyone happy. But you know who's happy? This guy.
Wow, Ethan, great moves. Keep it up. Proud of you.
Thank you. I'm going to pretend you all said that, not Michelle Obama. because things are finally coming together. I don't know if you've noticed so far, but there have been maybe like 10 drop frames out of the thousands that have already been live streamed in this top 8. We finally fixed things. Finally. The cameras are back. Everything is back other than 2 things. Check this out. You want to see some of what the behind the scenes is like? Look at this. My headset, I don't know what happened. You know when I popped up and was like, hey, Lee, let's do the Tavern Brawlers giveaway. When I came back, what happened to what happened here? Who did this? I pay my blood debt day by day. Like, I don't know what's going on. But this is not just physically broken. It also no longer works. So that was rough. We're still dealing with that. The other piece of failing tech right now is the keyboard. The keyboard is really having issues. I should probably have a wired one next time, but this thing is small and portable. All right, let's draw that last winner. Let's draw that last winner. Everyone's spamming the chat. Everyone's spamming Hamilton. Last winner. We've got Mofty. Ooh, and this person is a channel member. This person's a channel member. So Nightbot should have said something. I'll at you as well. Mofty. You won. Congratulations, Mofty. Channel member, spam some of your special channel member emotes. I actually forgot to kind of do that. I had meant to add more emotes. What emotes do I have even? Let me see. I've got these emotes. But anyway, if you become a channel member, it's a great way to support, not necessarily like this stream. This stream is sponsored by LSS. But when I do stream like during the week, channel membership is basically the like YouTube version of a Twitch subscription, right? So I try to put like some little fun emotes for people. But anyway, congratulations, Mofty. Congrats. You are the 3rd winner of these Dragon Shield vouchers. Okay, we're going to cut back to a bit of a break, perhaps, because I think I have an update about what we're going to do with the next match here, and then we'll get that all sorted. So thanks for tuning in. All right, bye. We'll be back.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Calling Indianapolis. We are gearing up for our top 4 matches today. We've got a cold one out there, folks.
This has reminded me of the Battle Hard in New Jersey. We actually had a very similar top 8 there with just one Briar squeaking through and a whole bunch of Ice Heroes. And unfortunately, at that time, that Briar also lost in the first round of top 8.
Yep.
So over here for our top 4 matches, we're going to go right into the graphic. And we have 2 of the same matchup. We did just watch this matchup on stream, and we have it again. Iyslander versus Oldhim and Iyslander versus Oldhim. However, these 2 Oldhims are playing different flavors. Now, we saw Charles Dunn playing the very full all-out fatigue live game type of Oldhim. Michael Yaskur, I believe that's how it's pronounced, actually is on the more aggressive type of Oldhim, the one we just saw piloted by Lucas Oswald.
So, yeah, looking ahead at what we're going to be jumping into, the game is going to be Charles Dunn versus MajiinBae. MajiinBae, there was some clerical error with the deck list, so he is resubmitting his deck list on a paper sheet, so it's going to be coming for you guys in the next couple of minutes. But we now get to see Charles Dunn on that pretty intense turtle up Oldhim. He's going to be untimed. He's going to be able to play towards whatever game plan or out he wishes to. And MajiinBae is going to have a tall task ahead of him of assembling, we got to imagine that combo package, and really push for a pretty insane amount of damage, because how are you going to break through with those red attacks with all those D-reacts, all that armor? I mean, the Crown of Seeds activation every turn. It's going to be tough for MajiinBae to pull this one out.
Very importantly, also Oasis Respites. Now, typically, Icelanders can rely on that red Aether Ice Vein at the minimum, leaking some damage in and stripping the extra card from the Oldhim. But if Charles Dunn is sitting on an Oasis Respite, that Ice Vein, even with through Insidious Chill triggers, can just be blocked out completely. So how to get through this? MajiinBae is going to try and need to set up as much broad stay as we can. We saw in the previous matchup, Hamilton just went for 2 Frost Hexes and 1 Chill. I wouldn't be surprised if MajiinBae feels like he needs to set up all 3 of each of this. And here's where the Amulets of Ice ban is actually going to affect how consistently he can actually pull off this combo. He's going to need to set those chills up and critically not waste all those charges until he's ready to do the full combo. Because remember, these triggers from Insidious Chill are not optional. You have to trigger them if you are fusing a card.
Absolutely.
On the Oldhim side, we see that Oasis Respite listed on the keycards. We just talked about it. Very critical to help block those tall arcane spells, which Icelanders nowadays are only running very few of. Those red Ice Veins are pretty much the only ones. Some of them have even gone as far as to cut the yellow Ice Veins. And finally, Crown of Seeds. We've talked about this all day today. Crown of Seeds with that arsenal slot, extra resources for the Oldhim to have.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see how MajiinBae wants to pull this all together. He's the master of many card games, this one. Incredible Legends of Runeterra player coming in and dominating at all of these high-level Flesh and Blood events, and the winner of the Goliath Gauntlet Season 1. So it's exciting to see him piloting his deck at the top 4 of the Calling Indianapolis. Another great feather in his cap, as both of these players have secured. They've already secured the gold foil. They've already secured the initial round of prizing. So now we're going to see how much further they can go in this here tournament.
They have also secured a PTI for themselves, so we can definitely expect to see MajiinBae showing up at Worlds this year.
That's exciting for everybody involved. Now, what's going to be interesting here is looking at how these heroes interact in this matchup, of course, but then if MajiinBae is able to pull this out, we have the potential for an Iyslander mirror. If MajiinBae is able to pull this out, we have the potential to see how he interacts with that aggressive Oldhim. And if Charles is able to pull this out, we're looking towards that kind of Oldhim mirror, but 2 different style of decks. Or we're going to see if Michael Hamilton on the list that he piloted or he created is able to find a different way through this turtley package. So we've got, even though the heroes are all the same, there's a number of different narratives moving through these 4 games, and it's going to be very interesting to see how it kind of all shapes together as we're going to get right down into this game.
Definitely, regardless of the outcome of both these top 4 matches, we are definitely geared up for a very, very exciting finals. So, looking at this, we know that Charles Dunn came in with the higher seed, and he has chosen to go first. Very different from the previous matchup where we saw Michael Hamilton choose to go second when he was the higher seed.
And if you're going first as the Oldhim here, it's a blue, but it's still a dominated attack, as that Glacial Footsteps is going to be fused, and right off the bat, MajiinBae is going to be forced to take some damage, even though this is the first turn of the game, and he is normally would be able to block with his whole hand and draw up from there.
Taking 5 damage turns, they're definitely not fun especially when your hero already starts at a 4 life deficit. MajiinBae at 31 going to Charles Dunn's second turn.
But when you're playing Iyslander, one of the things you want to do as early as you can, when you've been the least pressured, is resolve an effective and powerful permanent. And if you're going to have to take some damage off a dominated attack, resolving your first Frost Hex is a pretty good consolation prize.
And this is exactly why Charles Dunn didn't want MajiinBae to go first, because he knows MajiinBae is going to be looking to enact that Frost Hex Ice Eternal game plan. He's saying, if MajiinBae gets to go first, he might be able to set one of these up for free, and I'm not going to let that happen.
I'm really interested to see the interplay of how the red attacks go into this list. I mean, it really seems like from the outside looking in, these red attacks are just going to do... The only way they're going to move through this man's hand is if the cards are stripped with some kind of an Insidious Chill trigger or something like that. And it's going to be very hard to make that happen with these attacks. Don't have go again. So right, a lot of these attacks are just going to get blocked by Charles Dunn here. It's going to be hard to see. It's hard for me to see how the red attacks are going to do what they intend to do by getting some of that damage through so that the combo is able to go off.
Definitely, and this is a very disciplined play by Charles Dunn. He has all these cards. He has 2 cards in hand, 1 card in arsenal, and he's saying, I'm just going to swing the hammer. I'm going to keep these cards to activate my Crown of Seeds to block damage if you try and do any sneaky wizard things on me. So don't even think about it, MajiinBae.
And after that, he is going to go ahead and activate the Crown of Seeds, filter the hand, see what he wants to do. He gets that sigil. There's some life gain.
That's just going to make the combo for MajiinBae even more difficult to pull off. And this, again, I want to go back to the Amulet of Ice Ban. That would have made this mountain of hell that Charles Dunn has a lot easier if there's Amulets of Ice were there, but they won't be there.
Yeah, the Amulet banning for Iyslander is huge into these kind of fatiguey matchups. It's so much more challenging to carve through that hand when you only have the Insidious Chills to work with. It forces you to be really temperate sometimes in choosing to activate those Ice Fuses, and you sometimes can't get over the hump if you don't have those extra amulets to take the rest of the cards out of the hand and ensure you're going to get some damage through against a deck that is doing everything it can possibly do to stop your every little leak.
Absolutely, and MajiinBae opting to keep this energy potion in his hand. Now that is yet another board state piece that he's looking to prioritize to get onto the field. Now we talked about the lack of amulets, but MajiinBae has brought in energy potions to sort of fill that gap. Amulet says 2 resources from your opponent, energy potion says you get an extra 2 resources. That'll make that Ice Eternal play that he's looking to set up at the end game that much stronger.
Pitching the Blizzard here, you have to imagine that is something that most likely is here to be a blue ice card. It's not going to get a lot of value from the text of the card, but what it is going to do right here is pitch towards the second Frost Hex. If you want to find a way to win this game against this kind of an Oldhim list, you need to resolve those Frost Hexes early and unopposed, and MajiinBae has found them in the first 2 or 3 hands of this game and has resolved 2 of them.
I actually believe that was in his opening hand, because that was in Arsenal for a while, that second Frost Hex. So MajiinBae definitely getting quite fortunate here, finding both these Frost Hexes so early. And over here, we see Charles Dunn breaking the Frostbite with the Crown of Seeds activation, and MajiinBae responding to the Crown of Seeds by using the Waning Moon before the damage prevention becomes active, and while Charles Dunn only has 1 floating. So Charles Dunn leaking 2 there, MajiinBae starting the trek down.
Now, every Frostbite that MajiinBae can find a way to force Charles Dunn to end his turn with. And again, Oldhim, he's got the Crown of Seeds. That's his kind of fail-safe. He's going to be able to pull that lever when he needs to and activate the Crown of Seeds and break the Frost Bites. But if he's left without resources or the Tunic is not online, that's going to be the way for Majin to start chipping in some damage.
Definitely. And Charles Dunn, after that, after the Crown of Seas resolve, went ahead and swung the Titan's Fist, opting not to keep that arsenal, saying that I know MajiinBae is going to try and set up some stuff, so let me leak in damage while I can. MajiinBae on his turn just sets up an energy potion, which we saw him hold on to the first turn, and arsenaling a blue ice card. One thing we haven't spoken about is Charles Dunn's equipment. Now, this is different from what Lucas brought in. Charles Dunn is representing the full AB3 along with the Crown of Seeds, whereas Lucas was only brought in AB2 along with the Stalagmite.
Indeed. And this is going to be another dominated attack. The thing about these Oldhim decks is they do have these powerful threats that they do need to be respected, because if you give them too much time, sometimes they can just throw these powerful attacks and you watch your life total dwindle. It's like, well, hold on, that's not what's supposed to be happening. I thought you're just blocking. I thought you're just gaining life. What's this dominated 8 or dominated 10 coming at me?
Definitely. And that Polar Blast was representing 5 damage, including the Waning Moon. What happened there was that after the Frostbite resolved, Charles Dunn pitched to activate the Tunic, went up to 3 resources, and managed to block out the Waning Moon completely. So that did cost him his tunic, but that tunic effectively bought him 2 life there because he was able to break the frostbite with it.
I think that's something we're going to definitely be monitoring in this game, is when does MajiinBae try to resolve the frostbite, and how does Charles Dunn creatively break them on his own terms so that he does not have to pay into the arcane barrier.
Definitely, and these turns where Charles Dunn does not have his tunic up and does not have an arsenal to activate Crown of Seeds, these are the openings that MajiinBae wants to find, because Charles Dunn has no instant speed activations to break that frostbite.
And so here's 8 damage coming at Oldhim here, and if Oldhim takes it or uses cards from his hand, most likely to block, that's going to allow MajiinBae to have a little breathing room to resolve the Insidious Chill that we can see sitting in his hand. So even though that's an expensive, sometimes challenging card to get out of your arsenal because it requires that full blue, it requires a little, it's not easy to get the Waning Moon in after that. It's looking like there might be a way. Look, he's pitching 2 cards, playing the Staunch Response. He's only going to have 1 card in his hand on this next turn. It looks like he's going to be able to resolve this Insidious Chill and maybe even get some points of arcane damage from the Frostbite.
Definitely, and we didn't talk about this earlier, but on the previous turn cycle, MajiinBae did pitch an Ice Eternal. Now we are pretty early on into the game, so that Ice Eternal is going to come back very early on in that pitch stack, and that is definitely a card you want to see later on in the game. When you have all these chills set up and all the Frost Hexes set up, after you've gone through the first cycle of the deck, that's when you want to immediately resolve the Ice Eternal and come in with a whole bunch of Frostbite damage.
And we see a second one pitched, and I see the 3rd Frost Hex in MajiinBae's hand.
Wow.
So if he is able to resolve that, I mean, we're looking at an entire... I say an entire game, MajiinBae's at 21. But we're looking at an enormous chunk of this game with 3 Frost Hexes on the board. Sometimes you go through your entire deck before you see your second. You find 2 near the end of your first cycle. So if he's able to resolve these here, there is a world in which MajiinBae can put this together. And of course, there's a world. He's such an incredible player. But we just know what this deck is capable of doing. We know the defense it's able to put up and the amount of life it's able to gain. It looks as though this is going to be potentially an Ice React.
No, that was pitching to the Waning Moon damage.
Got you.
MajiinBae being extremely aggressive here on Charles Dunn's turn, and I absolutely love it. He has kept Charles Dunn off that arsenal for the past 2 turns now. However, that play does mean that on his turn, all he could do was arsenal, because as you said, he has a board state piece that he doesn't want to give up, and he has a red attack in hand. However, since that was his opening to leak some damage in, he decided to just go for it and sacrifice the damage on his own turn.
So we'll see how much damage Charles is able to represent here on this turn. I think this is relatively important. MajiinBae really wants to resolve this board piece. He would love to get that red attack, and if he can, an Autumn Touch, you know, there could be a pummel. Have we seen Charles do any pummels? We've seen so many pummels and so many Oldhims today, man.
I'm not sure. Also, is this the yellow Autumn's Touch? This is the yellow Autumn's Touch. Now, this is a very interesting inclusion in Oldhims, because what this allows you to do is Earth and Ice react at the same time, because you pitch the yellow and then you pitch your blue Ice card on top of that, and that lets you, resolve both. Now, you will have 2 floating, but if you're against something like a Rune Blade or something where the 2 floating can block Arcane later, that's when this can actually be very, very effective. It's almost like, they lost their pulse, so this is a we have pulse at home sort of thing.
I mean, this was not too threatening of a turn from the Oldhim here. He's going to be able to represent a life gain, 7 points of damage. We'll see how Charles Dunn wants to block it. But that Frost Hex is remaining sitting pretty in the arsenal there, and we're going to see when he's going to be able to resolve it. He wants to do it sooner rather than later, but trying to get too aggressive or maybe too greedy with it is a way to open the door for Charles Dunn to kind of take control.
Exactly. MajiinBae definitely recognizing that this Oldhim is probably going to take a turn or 2 to just life gain up or just hammer, and that's when he wants to resolve the Frost Hex. When there's an Autumn's Touch coming at him, that's a bit too much damage that he wants to take to set up the Frost Hex. He's saying, when you hammer me or something, that's when I'll do the Frost Hex. And we see one of the Oasis Respites being used here. MajiinBae definitely very happy to see that. Those are cards that he doesn't want to see when he's Ice Veining Charles Dunn, but when it's just a Finals Fighting Spirit, especially when Charles Dunn had to pitch into it because his tunic wasn't up, he's very happy to see that.
Absolutely. You have to imagine there are 2 more ready to go in Charles's list, prepared for the turn that he either tries to break the Storm Striders or go off in some other way. But look, we're going to gain a life off the Heart of Findal. We're going to put the Frostbite on the stack. That represents 3 Arcane here if he is unable to break it. He has the Tunic counter up. He could activate it and pitch the card in his hand. But now, for the rest of the game, we're looking at 3 Arcane damage for every Frostbite that he ends the turn with.
Definitely, but very interesting here, if MajiinBae doesn't actually activate the Waning Moon, Charles Dunn doesn't need to activate his Tunic to break the Frostbite. He just And we see that happening. He just goes to his end step, pitches the blue to AB3.
Yeah.
So in a situation like this, MajiinBae did need to activate the Waning Moon to leak the damage, as we saw him do. But he said, you know what? Fine. Use your blue to block the damage. I'm going to keep my card so I can send this Fighting Spirit at you. Now, we've been in this position before. MajiinBae is open to an Ice React here. Let's see if Charles Dunn opts to use that to make sure that MajiinBae can't do anything too aggressive on Charles Dunn's turn.
See the Autumn Touch? We can see another Oasis. Looks like Deja Vu once again, as this Oasis Respite is going to clean up the rest of the Fighting Spirit's damage.
This time, it was used off of a Tunic counter. However, MajiinBae still, I think he's very happy with that exchange. He's saying, you used an Oasis on my physical damage when you only have AB3 and Crown of Seeds. That means my red Ice Vein is going to hit unless you have your third and final Oasis. And remember, we know Charles Dunn is running Remembrances, but Oasis Respite, not a card you can pick up with Remembrance because that is an instant.
This Cold Snap coming out of the arsenal, targeting the arsenal card of Charles here. That's going to resolve, put the Frostbound on the field, and then the Waning Moon's going to come in for the 3. So we'll see. This is looking like there might be some damage leak here.
Yep, so Charles Dunn responding to the Waning Moon with the Crown of Seeds, and yeah, we talked about this. With the Crown of Seeds up, it is difficult for these Frostbites to stick and deal damage. However, that is 2 resources he used to activate Crown of Seeds, so he did end up leaking 1, and he wants to keep that arsenal because we've seen how critical it is. If he didn't have that arsenal card, he would have leaked an extra 3 from those Frostbites. From that 1 Frostbite, rather.
Here comes a Wounded Bull. So we've seen a number of these red attacks now, and Charles Dunn, as we talked about at the beginning of this broadcast, he's still at 40. These red attacks aren't going to do a good job of pressuring through this incredibly effective defense being set up by Charles here, but will they be doing enough hand stripping and presenting potential threats to get there? The thing for Majin here is that Ice Eternal combo, you need to, often, your opponent needs to have taken some damage to be in the kill range. I mean, maybe I'm just, you're the math guy, but can you Ice Eternal someone from 40?
40 is a bit much.
Yeah.
20-something with a bunch of E-Pods, definitely possible. 40 is a little high. Now, one card we haven't seen yet, but one I'm almost certain Charles Dunn runs, is that Imperial Warhorn. Now, while MajiinBae has found these early board state pieces, the drawback is that once Charles Dunn finds his Warhorn, he knows for a fact he'll be able to get an Insidious Chill and a Frost Hex off the board once he activates it.
That's very true, and that is a devastating effect there from the Warhorn. All the work going into set up these permanent pieces just to have them in a way that is pretty unique and rare in Flesh and Blood to interact with that type of a board state. It's going to be tough if and when that does end up resolving.
Definitely. Actually, correction, the Insidious Chill may not need to go because MajiinBae does have an energy potion and he can choose to sacrifice that instead.
All right, 3 damage got through there off the Waning Moon.
Yep, and that's because Charles Dunn didn't have the arsenal to break the Frostbite with the Crown of Seeds. MajiinBae coming in with his E-Strike. Don't know what mode he has chosen. I would guess that his draw a card. That's probably E-Strike's strongest mode, arguably, because you go 5 with just 1 card, you still get to Arsenal, and Iyslander does love our Arsenal, particularly when the opponent has 3 Frost Hexes on them, and each Frostbite represents 3 extra damage. So I imagine it's that, and he's just pass priority to Charles Dunn, and there we go. Yes, we see him draw that card. Did he draw into another E-Strike? Is that what I saw? We just caught a quick glimpse of it.
Let's see how Charles wants to respond. He's got the Sink Below out of his arsenal, which is going to cover up 4 of that damage.
And there is that Warhorn in his hand.
There it is.
Now remember, he does need 2 full turn cycles to actually activate the Warhorn. He needs to play it, and that uses his action point, and then next turn he needs to activate it, which will also use his action point.
Yeah, and this is going to be tough for Majin when he sees this one come down.
Yep. And there's also Remembrance in his hand. So the moment he activates his Warhorn, he'll be able to pop the Remembrance to put the Warhorn back into his deck.
Yep.
And that is one of the other benefits of having Crown of Seeds as your headpiece. We talked about it. You can arsenal any card you want. It gives you extra resources. It gives you damage prevention. But it also lets you turbo through your deck just a little bit faster to find your pieces like your Warhorns.
Yeah, it's a pretty insane Flesh and Blood card, Crown of Seeds. It's pretty insane when it does the thing it wants to do.
I mean, we have 5 Oldhims in top 8 for a reason.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Crown of Seeds is a big part of that reason.
So we're going to see now, does MajiinBae attempt to get as much value as he can out of these pieces, knowing that some of them might not be long for this world? Or does he force Charles into making the play and just kind of trying to claw back from there?
So it looks like he doesn't have an ice fuse in his hand, so he can't trigger the chills. But his chills are safe anyway, as we talked about, because of the energy potion. It is the frost hex that Charles Dunn gets to decide when he pops a Warhorn that I'm choosing to get rid of this goddamn affliction that you've put on me. Get that out of here. I don't want it. And that is the second energy potion, which will insulate the second Insidious Chill as well after these Warhorns get popped. But again, these energy potions, we talked about this earlier. If MajiinBae wants to go for a massive Ice Eternal, those energy potions are also going to be critical. So Charles Dunn may not be getting the chills from popping the Warhorn, but he's still getting a pretty significant board piece in those energy potions.
Yeah, and that Tunic counter is up in case, for some reason, too much of the hand was stripped. You could always just pop the Tunic and put that right into the Warhorn effect. It's going to take up his action point to do so if he elects to do it.
And I believe we are seeing it popped here. And it is on the stack. Let's see how MajiinBae responds. He, of course, can give the Frostbite over here, but likely by the time the end of the turn comes and the Frostbite is getting ready to be popped, one of those Frost Hexes will be in MajiinBae's graveyard. So critically, one counter that Iyslander could potentially have to a strategy like what Charles Dunn is doing is have remembrances of their own. But
so it looks...
Yeah, but we're not sure whether MajiinBae is running those, so...
No. That Remembrance is immediately just going to go ahead and most likely grab the Warhorn. Yeah, he just grabs it right away.
And likely looking to get more of those life gain pieces, looking to grab the Sunkiss. Just two. Saying just two. I don't want to dilute my deck too much. I do want to find this Warhorn again as soon as I can, so, you know... That's, we don't need to put too many things back in. Just a Sunkiss and a Warhorn is fine.
Powerful effect, that Remembrance card.
Very much
We've seen
so.
it used in attempts to defend against this fatigue strategy, and we've seen it used in the way towards the fatigue.
Definitely. And I think one of the advantages of being against a deck like Iyslander that is sending a lot of arcane damage at you is that if you want to fatigue them, you don't necessarily need to run above 60 cards, because you want losing cards from your deck to block that arcane damage, which means that Charles Dunn does have the luxury to run a clean 60, which will also let him find these Warhorns faster.
Yeah. Deck seems good.
It's pretty good.
I mean, the deck seems good to me.
So Charles Dunn breaking that Frostbite with the Tunic counter this time, and I wonder how MajiinBae is going to read what's in his arsenal. I believe we know it is the other Remembrance, if I'm remembering correctly. Remembering correctly. But MajiinBae definitely noticed that the Crown of Seeds wasn't used there to break the Frostbite. Instead, it was the Tunic. I missed. He revealed it for a moment. I missed it.
Momentarily. Right. This red Aether Ice Vein, though, is coming in. It's fused with the frosting, so it's going to represent both the Insidious Chill triggers and then the effect when the card does hit, unless that third and final Oasis is there, but I don't think we see it.
Yeah, so critically, what MajiinBae needs to do, he is forced to use the chill triggers. Yeah, I think he is seeing that, okay, his chills are not really long for this world, his frost hexes aren't long for this world, so he needs to try and get value out of them right now. So what he really wants to do off the back of his fused Ice Vein is arsenal a strong ice card to poke damage on Charles Dunn's turn after his hand has been stripped from this Ice Vein.
Well, and frosting, incredibly strong ice card. It's about as strong as you could hope for.
He's probably hoping for something like an Ice Bolt or an Aether Hail, but frosting will do the job. It does create the extra Frostbite.
And this, again, is critically on his turn, so he gave himself a little opening. This will represent some damage. It would be, you'd be happier to see an Ice Bolt or even an Aether Hail, but here we're looking at the frosting as this is just going to be coming in with the Healing Bomb. He's just going up 3 more life. But before that happens, MajiinBae most likely is going to respond and get some damage in.
Yep, it was a Healing Bomb, not the Remembrance. And yeah, I mean, this frosting represents 6 damage, including the Waning Moon. 1 from the frosting, 2 from Frostbites, and then the Waning Moon. So 6 damage off the back of that Ice Vein play. Not too bad, but you know MajiinBae wants more than that when he's using up those precious, precious Insidious Chill triggers.
Yeah. Again, where you feel this hero missing those Amulets of Ice, something that can just stick on the board until you really need it. I know a go again if you ever have multiple cards in your hand and you need more ways to use your action point. So we'll see now. And Charles Dunn is, again, well, he's off the arsenal. There's the third Insidious Chill. It's everything you could ask for if you're the Iyslander. You have at this point, without that Warhorn, MajiinBae would have all 3 Insidious Chills. He'd have 3 Frost Hexes, and he'd have 2 energy potions, and that is what you're looking for in this matchup. That Imperial Warhorn is just going to... Now, the fact that he can recur it, it's already carved through one of the Frost Hexes, and it very well could carve through another.
Yeah, so MajiinBae really hoping to probably find his third Ice Eternal before Charles Dunn finds the Warhorn again, because we did see 2 Ice Eternals pitch pretty early on in the game. So he's hoping to maybe try and get that 2 cash in these Frost Hexes before they get too dead away from the Warhorn. Looks like the Titan's Fist coming in here for Charles Dunn, being very conservative, keeping 3 cards in his hand, saying, I'm going to be able to AB anything you want to do.
Prioritizing getting that Arsenal.
Yep, and also Arsenal at the end of the turn. Very, very disciplined from Charles Dunn. For as much as, we talk about his fatigue Oldhim list and we talk about remembrances and stuff, it does require a fair amount of discipline to pilot correctly. He was not taking the opportunity to send a big attack at MajiinBae. He was being disciplined about it. He's saying, I'm just going to hammer and still keep 3 cards in my hand. And it is plays like that that make you successful at this deck. If you try and get greedy at any point, the Wizard player could punish you for it.
Absolutely. You don't want to get dinner plate eyes when you're playing a fatigue deck. You don't want to look at the damage you could be putting out. Oh, I could do all these cool things. Like, sometimes you need to. Sometimes if the way the game has shaken out, you are able to throw an attack and pressure. We've seen these fatigue decks, often even when it goes to the end of the deck, the players are at low life totals because you're still throwing attacks, as you said about the card economy, of blocking with multiple cards to my 1 or to my weapon. So it's interesting to see how it all comes together here.
Exactly. And we see that discipline again here from Charles Dunn. He said, all right, I'm going to use my cards to block your thing. And on my turn, even though I have 2 cards, even though I could swing the hammer, he's saying, I'm just going to pass priority. I want to keep my defenses up. That is my priority in this game. Dealing damage is not the priority. If you give me the opening, I'll send some damage at you. But if not, I just want to keep my life total high.
And this is the second red Aether Ice Vein. So this is going to represent the second Insidious Chill counter off 2 of them. The first off of the third. It's going to be coming in for 5 Arcane. There's going to be most likely a Waning Moon activation following for 2 more arcane damage, so we're going to see exactly how Charles Dunn wants to respond. This, these first 6 resources being, asked for by the Insidious Chill, this requires at least 2 blues from your hand. And now we're going to see, though, if MajiinBae really prioritizes holding on to those Insidious Chill, that final Insidious Chill counter on the first 2 until that Ice Eternal turn.
Yep, and this time MajiinBae is representing putting that Ice Bolt in Arsenal. That is the card he wants to see. That card, with the tuning up to pay for Waning Moon exactly, and 2 Frost Hexes, represents 9 damage in Charles Dunn's turn. That's about a third of his life.
And that Warhorn, even if he had it in his hand, it would take another turn cycle to be able to activate it. So MajiinBae is looking at this as a potential opening to start getting some damage through and look for that turn that you need against these type of defensive lists.
Definitely, but while he's using these chill charges, if he doesn't quite get Charles Dunn to low enough to finish him off with something like an Emeritus Scolding or something, this is still looking pretty tricky for him, because these red Ice Veins are about the only things that are going to strip Charles Dunn's hand, but aside from that, he can just block all day long with that AB3 plus 1 more from Carna Seeds.
Yeah, it's hard to see this Oldhim deck extending too far and allowing for... Oh my goodness.
That's a steadfast. We talked about OS's Respite a lot at the start of this game, but that's a steadfast coming out from Charles Dunn here. Not leaking any damage from the Ice Vein, not needing to discard for it.
You look like you saw a ghost when the Steadfast hit the board.
I completely forgot about that. We saw that on
the other game, yeah. That's pretty effective here. No, it's just pretty effective. We got the dinner plate eyes. We were like, go.
Yeah. Well, it is Charles Dunn's turn now. Now, he didn't leak any damage from the Ice Vein, but he is empty-handed, so MajiinBae likely going to come in for that 9 damage. Of course, Charles Dunn does have the Tunic up to block 1 of it. Likely going to cash it in.
Yeah, we'll see. These Tunic counters have been pretty well used by the players here. We've been very, impressed at the way that they've used the Tunic counters throughout the game. I've seen, in the other top 8 match, he was lining up, in the Oldhim mirror, he was lining up his Tunic turn for his Sledge of Anvilheim every single time. It would be 3 turns, Sledge of Anvilheim, 3 turns, Sledge of Anvilheim. So we know this guy knows how to use his Tunic very effectively.
And we have seen him be extremely disciplined in all these games. He knows unless he has exactly the opening that he wants, he's not going to give any inches to MajiinBae here.
So MajiinBae definitely taking his time as he thinks through this turn, because this is the first opportunity he's had to with his opponent completely shields down.
Yeah, is that a freezing point in his hand?
It might be.
I think that's a freezing point in his hand.
It is.
Wow. Now that is another fusion card, and that will represent 7 damage with these 2 Frost Hexes on Charleston's side of the field.
Let's see how he wants to go about. You can tell that he knows this is an opportunity. He doesn't want to squander it.
Yep. So Frostbite is on the stack. Let's see what the Charleston responds with activating his tuning, or whether he wants to conserve the tunic resource for the potential follow-up turn, where he might want to pitch into it to break a Frostbite.
Absolutely.
Okay, looks like he's opting to just cash that in right now. And likely going to be leaking 8 damage then, including the Waning Moon after this. Sorry, 7 damage.
Do we think the tunic counter for Majin here is used to push the Waning Moon?
I think so.
He has the Ice Eternal in his hand as well. Yeah, he has that Ice Eternal.
Yes, but he has no ice card to fuse with, unfortunately. So he does have the Freezing Point and Ice Eternal, but no ice card to fuse it. Oh, it looks like he's pitching to activate the Waning Moon instead of activating the tunic. So I wonder whether he's trying to set up an Ice Eternal into a Freezing Point line. Now, remember, Ice Eternal creates a bunch of Frostbites, and then Freezing Point will look at the number of Frostbites and the number of Frost Hexes that you have and deal that much damage to you. So we might be looking at a line here where MajiinBae does a big Ice Eternal on his own turn, strips Charles Dunn's hand, put a bunch of Frostbites on his side of the field, and when it goes to Charles Dunn's turn with an empty hand, MajiinBae activates the Storm Striders to do a massive Freezing Point to end the game. Let's see if that is what we're going to see here.
This sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, man, that sounds pretty cool.
I mean, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, he does need a fair number of blues in hand to be able to pull that off.
Yeah, we only have the 1 energy potion as well because the second one was destroyed by the Imperial Warhorn.
Of course. So Charles Dunn went ahead and healed up 3 there. I don't think the life was... Oh, it was
I think he
updated.
put it up, yeah.
Yeah, it was updated.
And as you see, we haven't seen those red attacks in a while because MajiinBae was churning through them. And you look at a card, we haven't seen an E-Strike. We haven't seen a Scar for Scar. You look at a card like a Freezing Point, and you wonder what maybe other substitutions Majin has done to put his own kind of special flavor onto this Bulllander list.
Yep. Because this Fatigue Oldhim list was not exactly a secret coming into this calling.
Certainly
People knew it definitely could exist, so Aunus Freezing Point was a concession to this sort of strategy. Now, MajiinBae here does need to care about when he uses that last Incidential trigger. So he's got Ice Eternal in Arsenal and the Freezing Point in hand. I think he might be conserving this, the last Incidential triggers on 2 of his Incidentials to just for that Ice Eternal. And yes, we see him pitch that red Ice Feint instead of, because he knows that he will waste that last trigger if he goes ahead and fuses that Ice Feint now.
And you don't want to just throw it for 5 arcane damage. That's not how you can get the most effective use out of this card.
Definitely not. I think the end game that he is looking to do is that Ice Eternal on his own turn into a Freezing Point on the opponent's turn.
And I don't think he's pitched it. I think he's been holding that Freezing Point for a couple turns. He hasn't
Yes.
shown it to Charles. And one thing that we did just get a note on right before we started streaming is that these deck lists actually have not been provided to the players. This is a new change in the kind of the, I guess not decorum, but in the rules policy that these lists are no longer open. So there are some surprises in store for both of these players. This Warhorn, though, has been resolved. The next turn, it will be taking one of these permanents off the board. So this might be where Majin attempts to do something before they're gone.
For sure. Let's see whether MajiinBae has drawn enough blues to do the big Ice Eternal play he wants to do. The previous turn, he had that 1 red Ice Feint, and so he chose not to do it. But let's see whether he has drawn into the 3 blues that he wants.
He's got at least 2 of them. It depends on if that Ice Feint is yellow or blue.
Yep, because with 3 blues and the Tunic and the Energy Potion, I believe he can make this Ice Eternal for X equals to 6. Ooh, it looks like he's going for it. This is going to be really exciting.
Floats the 2 resources off of the Energy Potion. No response from Charles.
Definitely Ice Eternal with 3 Incidentials behind it and a massive one at that, creating that many Frostbite. Charleston may not have a way to break those Frostbites on his own turn, which means that Freezing Point will come in for absolutely massive damage. And that is a blue Ice Feint here. Now, MajiinBae choosing not to use the Tunic here, leaving the 2 floating to possibly just activate the Waning Moon.
You have to imagine that only 4 Frostbites are going to be able to be dealt with. Because these Insidious Chills are only going to require 2 blues from hand, right? So, only 4 Frostbites here. You can pitch to the Crown of Seeds.
Yep, you definitely can. So, you'll be leaking 4 from the Ice Eternal, but yes, you're absolutely right. The Crown of Seeds can just negate all this Frostbite, all the hard work MajiinBae can put in. Now, there is an interesting priority window that happens as the Frostbite destructions are on the stack, where MajiinBae can respond to that with the freezing point. So while the frostbites are being destroyed, they do still exist on Charles Dunn's side of the field. Now, of course, we might see Charles Dunn break those frostbites on MajiinBae's turn to prevent exactly that sort of play.
Yeah. There is one sink below that we can see in Charles Dunn's hand. We were just taking a look at that. He could attempt to filter that into a blue by pitching it to the crown seeds. It looks like he's just going to discard it to the first effect.
Yep. So MajiinBae definitely very happy to see that one red card in Charles Dunn's hand. Now let's see whether he opts to block Arcania or whether he chooses to just save that last blue to be able to activate Crown Seeds on MajiinBae's turn.
He's going to take 4 from the effect of the Ice Eternal being fused. That's 4 arcane damage.
Oh, that was a mistake earlier on. MajiinBae did not have 2 floating. He just that was just a leftover from when he was representing the energy potion damage, the energy potion resources. So yep, it looks like Charles Dunn does break those frostbites on MajiinBae's turn. So that does put a stop to MajiinBae's combo, and very, very critically, that's 2 Insidious Chills off the board. They weren't even Warhorned away, Sam. They were just used, and Charles Dunn's still sitting happily at 21 life.
Yeah, it's looking like it's going to be tough for Majin to find the answers to this Oldhim's plan, because that was about as big of a window as you're going to get with this Iyslander deck. That freezing point, an interesting inclusion, but at this point, we're going to lose the Insidious Chill, we're going to lose one of the Frost Hexes, and it's going to be tough for the Iyslander to climb back from here.
Yep. Charles Dunn just activated Tunic. There was no Frostbite from MajiinBae's side. Went and activated the Warhorn. That's just 1 Frost Hex left, and we haven't seen a Remembrance yet from MajiinBae's side, so...
Was there any way to get enough Frostbites on the field? He had a blue in hand. He left 2 floating, so even if you go...
So it actually wasn't 2 floating. That was a mistake on my end. It was actually just... He didn't move it away after activating the E-Pot, so he did put a full 8 into Ice Eternal, and he did need to keep 1 blue in hand to fuse that Ice Eternal. So.
Yeah, there were 2 floating after the activation of after the Insidious Chill triggers on Charles' side. But however, this is going to be the 3rd and final Oasis Respite, pointing at another big old red arcane damage attack. I mean, they've come at the right times.
Yep. And this time, no Insidious Chill trigger, so Charles Dunn says, fine, you might leak... No, you won't leak anything because Oasis Respite prevents 4 of it, and then you can just AB2 the final 2 from that 6. So yeah, that Ice Eternal came in for as big as MajiinBae could have with just 1 energy potion, because he had to keep 1 ice card in hand, and he of course wanted to also keep that freezing point.
Absolutely.
So, to Charles Dunn's credit, that was a very heads-up play by him, recognizing that he had to do the Crown of Seeds on MajiinBae's turn, and he couldn't let it come to his turn, because otherwise MajiinBae could have responded to the Frostbite Destructions, as we were talking about.
2nd Ice Eternal coming in. This is going to be for 5. Using the Tunic counter.
Yep, so this is still quite a bit of damage, but with just 1 Frost Hex, that's just 5 more damage instead of the potential 15 that it could have been had the other 2 Frost Hexes not gotten blown up by the Warhorn.
That Warhorn looking like, I mean, the way that the Iyslander, the way that MajiinBae was able to set up those permanents, it felt like, wow, like, there is a chance for this Iyslander to assemble the pieces of Exodia and put the right combo together and find a way to close this game out against a just incredibly defensive opponent. But that card out of Dynasty, man, Imperial Warhorn, it does such an effective job of, and again, in a pretty unique way in Flesh and Blood, the cards like Thaw that can interact with permanent pieces, but other than those couple of cards, there's not many ways to interact with these type of effects. And the way that Imperial Warhorn can be recurred with the Remembrance is tough to work through.
Absolutely, and Charles Dunn coming in with a fused Oaken Old
What
here.
is this?
Out of nowhere, this Fatigue Oldhim is just like, here, you know what, take this Haymaker from me, how about that? And you know that MajiinBae is unlikely to have sided in any defense reactions against this sort of Oldhim, so... I mean, he still does have his armor pieces up, he has Ironhide and the Crown of Providence, but without defense reactions, it is unlikely they'll be able to cover this up completely.
9 damage, Dominate, and if it hits a hero, they put 2 cards from their hand on the bottom of the deck in any order.
Yeah, 11 Dominate, go again. Oh my... Oh wait, no, never mind. Sorry, I was getting flashbacks.
We
there,
don't
no.
talk about Starvo.
just 9, just 9,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's a good reminder.
Yeah. But in any case, quite a crippling turn there from Charles Dunn. Out of nowhere, really, this fatigue golem is really showing us.
This list, he has shown the ability to hit you with an Oakenold. I've seen in games where he's just been blocking, and then all of a sudden it's a Pulverize. And the Pulverize is very, I mean, it's the Pulverize.
Yeah, and that was pitch tagged. We are at turn 20. Shout out to Mansand for keeping track of the turns that have gone through in the game. We are at turn 20. We know that was pitch tagged by Charles Dunn. It was not a coincidence.
Didn't have to just draw that one.
So MajiinBae here now in a bit of a bind. I believe when Charles Dunn was looking through MajiinBae's graveyard, there was only one Ice Eternal remaining in the deck. 2 of them have already been used. So let's see if MajiinBae can cobble together some sort of endgame state. We have, how many Ice Veins have we seen from MajiinBae? I know we've seen at least
There's
2.
one red that's been pitched.
Oh yeah, there was one red.
Yeah, that's coming back around. So, at 15, theoretically, when you get a player to, this is like the 10 to 15 window, but there's so much healing. He has access to the 3 AB plus the Crown of Seeds. It's an uphill climb for the Iyslander here.
Speaking of the healing, there's a Sigil of Solace in Charles Dunn's hand, which I expect we're going to see used right here.
6 damage coming in, going to be blocked by the Channel Lake Frigid, plus the Brothers in Arm, pitching into it to fully take care of all of that damage. Charleston responds with the Sigil of Solace, going up to 17, playing 20.
Yep, just letting MajiinBae know, hey, I have more healing than this deck. You thought you had climbed the mountain a decent amount. Nope, here's 3 more life you have to get through as you are running out of reds. Now, this Iyslander is looking to really get fatigued. Once the Iyslander is down to just her blue cards, Charles Dunn has enough AB and enough pitch in the world to deal with that.
Charles Dunn, because of all that healing he has been able to do, he's feeling comfortable representing these important threats. Macho Grande, that's 8 dominate. He's only going to be able to block with 1 card, MajiinBae is, so this is going to be responded to with the Aether Hail.
Yeah, I believe that's after the Frostbite has resolved, but before the Aether Hail has resolved.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, there's a trigger there. Iyslander trigger goes on the stack as the card is played, but that card, of course, is also a layer on the stack. And MajiinBae responds to Crown of Seeds. With the Waning Moon activation, Charles Dunn takes that 3.
You have to wonder, without all that healing, where would we be?
Let's see. I think we've seen all 3 Sigils of Solace, and we have seen a Sunkiss,
a Healing Bomb,
as well. That
definitely.
was like 15 life right there.
And he's at 14.
He's at 40. Yep. So yeah, Charles Dunn took a pretty aggressive line there, which is pretty out of character for him. We have seen him opt to just swing the hammer in those sorts of situations, and slightly punished for it, leaking 3, which I don't think he was happy to leak there, of course, with the sort of game plan that he's on. So let's see if he gets punished for that greedy line.
Yeah, well, he seems to be aware of the point in the game that we're at. He seems to not be as threatened by the cards. He's been checking that graveyard. He knows the cards that are in the Bull-Ender list. He maybe was surprised by the freezing point unless he saw it in one of the earlier rounds. But maybe, there's a chance that he's just not as concerned moving forward with what MajiinBae is able to put out. Here we are going to see that more conservative line that you were just describing. It's just going to be a Titan's Fist, 2 cards in hand, happy to pitch some to the AB, keep one in the arsenal for the Crown of Seeds.
Definitely. And speaking of noticing what MajiinBae is up to, that Charles Dunn knows there is that one last red Ice Vein that MajiinBae has pitched. So perhaps he knows that we're coming up onto it, and he's saying, all right, that's when I start being a little more conservative. But for now, you are eating my damage.
So this Emeritus Scolding often used to try to close the game out. We see another Emeritus in hand for MajiinBae, so perhaps that's speaks to why he's willing to just throw it out here, representing 4 damage and then the 3 from the Waning Moon.
Especially when Charles Dunn doesn't have that arsenal, that means this Emeritus Scolding is always going to leak at least 1, because he only has AB3, and the only way he ever gets that 4th point of damage prevention is through the Crown of Seeds, unless, of course, we see another Steadfast or Oasis Respite. But, yeah, so hoping to leak 1 with Emeritus there, but not leaking any from the Waning Moon, because Charles Dunn does AB all of that.
This is... We should not and cannot count MajiinBae out until this game is over. The life totals as it stands now, it's 13-8. In every other game we've been playing, I've been a broken record saying, this is where Iyslander wants you to be, right? This is where the hero likes to be, is at similar life totals at this point in the game where they can use their Storm Striders to even out the disadvantage of starting at less life and the kind of below rate cards that some of your arcane damage spells can do. This is just a 7-power Oakenold.
Yep, this time not fused.
technically representing a pummel, but we haven't really seen any of those pitched or used here from Charles.
Yep. The one thing about the Chrono Seeds that also lets you hide the information, and you brought this up earlier, so, MajiinBae can't know for sure that there isn't a pummel, because it could have just been crowned away next to his Okanold, but I think based on the game plan that Charles Dunn has been enacting, he's saying, nah, I don't think you have any of those 2 blocks in your list. You don't seem like the kind of person who would do that.
Oh, and there is the red Aether Ice Vein, so this is going to make it more challenging for Majin to find the quote-unquote kill turn. That red Aether is, at this point, well, from what we can tell, the best card remaining in his deck to use on the Storm Stratus turn. He's doing it into a hand, and a full hand for Charles Dunn here. He's already mitigated 1 of the arcane damage. He can block another 3, and then respond to the Aether Ice Vein trigger, see how many cards he wants to pitch into its effect. But we're seeing the Blizzards that he's been pitching early, these Blizzards that are blockless ice cards that pitch for 3 at this point. There's never going to be go again from this list that he's facing. So are there enough threats left in Majin-Bae's deck to make a dent? Or is this him kind of, you can see him kind of laughing a little bit and smiling as the players are chatting. Is he aware of what could be the writing on the wall?
And critically, without those Insidious Chills, that Ice Vein feels slightly toothless. We talked about this earlier, where after you follow up an Ice Vein, you really want to capitalize on it by sending a big Arcane Spell at your opponent on their turn when their hand has been stripped. But without those Chills, Charles Dunn just sitting comfortable at 2 blues still in his hand, saying, all right, I'm going to pass priority. What are you going to do? What are you going to hit me with? The worst you can do is Emeritus Scolding, I leak 1. Great.
Majin-Bae going to gain a life, coming in with the Aether Hail for 2 Arcane and the Frostbite, pitching the Heart of Findall to do so. 2 floating, representing the Waning Moon 3 on the back end. Now, he's done a good job for the last couple of turns of representing a threat and attempting to keep, there's been, at every other turn or so, this Crown of Seas has not been active. So it's going to be interesting to see, can he keep that kind of pressure on? It's looking like Charles Dunn might leak a couple points of damage here, but is willing to take some in order to set up that arsenal once again and allow him to continue on the train of staying alive.
Definitely. Now, Charles Dunn did break that Frostbite with the Tunic resource and covered up the Aether Hail and the Waning Moon completely. Now, we do see the final Ice Eternal in Majin-Bae's hand. Let's see whether that is enough, along with the Storm Striders, to get him over the finish line.
Well, and as we can see here, right now there's no effect on board for Charles Dunn to pitch into an Ice Eternal Frostbite stack. There's not the 2 Frost Hexes anymore, but he has no arsenal. His Tunic is not at 3, so perhaps this is a window for Majin-Bae to get a sudden burst of damage in.
Perhaps he does also have Tunic up, so that makes it easy for this Ice Eternal to come in for that X equals to 5 that we saw earlier. Now,
interesting. He just passes the turn, or he passes priority and allows the turn to pass back to him.
Yep, looks like he wants to do the Ice Eternal on his own turn and then capitalize on it. Okay, so presenting the 5 Frostbites, but this does seem like Charles Dunn might do exactly what he did the last time we saw this sort of play coming from Majin-Bae, where he will just say, okay, I will Crown of Seeds on your turn so that the Frostbites are nowhere near me when it comes back to me. Okay, it looks like he's doing the Crown of Seeds in response to the Ice Eternal. Perhaps he's just not as afraid of it when there isn't the threat of those Insidious Chills to back this up.
And at the end of this turn, the Frostbites will not deal any damage, but he will then have to deal with them, or else we've got 5 more damage coming in after that.
Yep, and critically, Majin-Bae is also showing that all he has in Arsenal is a Cold Snap. It is not another big damaging spell like that Ice Bolt or something. So maybe that's also why Charles is saying, you know what, it's fine. I can Crown of Seeds. I don't need to use the Crown of Seeds to break the Frostbites here.
No,
I can maybe send the Hammer or something.
It'd be interesting to speak to him about what, if anything, the choice was between the Frosting there. It's not a big damaging spell, but it is at least a point of damage.
Definitely.
And he is able to just pitch all the way into that Hammer, which you had to expect with all the blues in this deck, break all those Frostbites.
And still keeping 1 card in hand. Now, again, we talk about the power of Crown of Seeds, but that's exactly what happened there. He got to turn his Arsenal card into a pitch card on Majin-Bae's turn with the activation of the Crown of Seeds. So he still has a 1 card remaining to be able to deal with any arcane damage that Majin-Bae wants to send.
Here comes 3 more arcane. It's going to be covered up immediately by the blue. He's got 1 more floating to deal with this.
With the Frostbite from the Frost Hex.
He has the Emeritus that he can set up into his own arsenal to look for that big damage. He's going to take the Titan's Fist damage here, which leads me to believe he wants to use his action point effectively and set up his arsenal. This is maybe looking closer than we thought it might be.
Definitely. If he draws into another Emeritus, we could be seeing Emeritus from Arsenal, Emeritus from hand with the Storm Striders into Waning Moon, which would be a total of 11 arcane damage. Now, Charles Dunn is at 10, so technically lethal, although we are likely to see Charles Dunn probably overextend.
Yeah, for that to
especially with
happen.
the 10. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. For that to happen, the Oldhim player would have to attempt to kill MajiinBae using too many cards from hand, too many resources. But when that Titan's Fist is going to pretty soon, I mean, next attack is going to threaten the lethal damage. It's hard for me to see how that happens.
Oh, Charles Dunn opting to use 2 cards here to cover up that 4 instead of just, blocking 3 and then just leaking 1. So going back to his turn with only 2 cards, and MajiinBae has drawn up that second Emeritus. So he has Emeritus in hand and Emeritus in arsenal. However, Charles Dunn is just holding on to 2 blues. So 11 damage with 6 of it prevented. That's, you will only leak 5. And MajiinBae, yep. When you don't have the lethal, he just says, all right, I will not use the Strider since it's not lethal anyway. And if I use it and I don't kill you, then I'm just in such a bad spot.
And at this point, we're looking at MajiinBae's deck. It's looking thin.
It is looking
It's
thin.
looking thin. We're talking about all the different ways this could go, but that at a certain point, it might all just come back down to fatigue.
Yep.
Charles Dunn might just be playing towards, I have enough AB to survive. I don't think you can pressure me enough to take the cards out of my hand. I fought through your Insidious Chills. I fought through your Aether Ice Veins. At this point, can you do it with the cards remaining in your deck? Can you get that 9 points of life to be gone?
Definitely. While MajiinBae has had to use cards on offense, Charles Dunn, for the most part, has just been pitching cards into his deck to deal with that offense. So this goes back to us saying what we said at the beginning. Charles Dunn didn't even need to side in more cards as you typically would against a deck you're trying to fatigue when the deck's trying to send physical attacks at you. He's saying, nope, I probably can just run an even 60, find my Warhorns early, and just, you have to use your cards on offense and send them to the graveyard. I'm just sending my cards back into my deck to block your damage.
Yeah, it's a very good point about being able to run, not diluting your deck with more cards, being worried about the fatigue. The remembrances help, the ability to pitch into that weapon consistently. We'll see.
This looks like it's Charles Dunn's turn, and he is opting to actually send that much. I think he's smelling blood in water. He's saying, all right, I'm still going to have 2 floating and my Tunic up. This is lethal. You don't run defense reactions if you don't have the kill right here. If you can't present 12 damage to me, and I know you've used a lot of your red arcane spells. If you can't represent exactly 12 to me, you are dead here, MajiinBae.
Yeah, and we know from what we've seen that I don't think that's going to be possible. Let's see. He's blocked 2 of it, blocked 3 of it, coming in for 3 more.
Yep, Charles Dunn is at 5. There is an Ice Vein in MajiinBae's hand, but I don't think it is red. We have seen all the red ones. So this is game. MajiinBae does die to that Macho Grande on the stack. Charles Dunn expertly calculating that. He's saying, you have no more red ice cards. You have no more red 5 damage spells, so I am safe here. I have exactly 12 life, surviving it to finishing it off with a Macho Grande.
Yeah, again, expert use of understanding his own matchup, expert use of understanding of his opponent's deck and the matchup at play there. It looks like, he's done it. Has he overextended in the way that we thought would be too dangerous? But no, we saw the freezing point, so there's the potential for like a random wizard card in there. But these decks are so tight, you have to find the right ratios. You have to keep the ice cards and the blues. So at this point, he was able to look through that graveyard and understand pretty confidently, like, I can throw this lethal attack down. You can get me down to maybe 2 or 3. But it's not going to be enough to close this game out. And so Charles Dunn, the #1 seed here at the Calling, is moving on into the finals. And we will have to get some information to see who his opponent is going to be, because we are looking at another Iyslander Oldhim game. Michael Hamilton has taken out that Oldhim and is going to move on into the finals. So can the world champion fight through this dominating fatigue Oldhim list that has just run through the tournament so far?
I think it'll be a tough one. We have seen in this matchup, Charles Dunn, how disciplined he is. It's almost matching Michael Hamilton's level of discipline. We've seen both these players be extremely disciplined across the course of this weekend, which you definitely have to be to reach the finals of such a big event like this. We had 491 players at this Calling Indianapolis, and these 2 are the finals ones standing.
Absolutely. And we, at the end of this incredible weekend of games, we only have 1 more game to watch, experience, and share with all of you. And it's been icy, it's been cold, but at this point now, as we just talked about, we've seen this match be played from a number of different perspectives in a number of different ways. This particular matchup, this Fatigue Oldhim list versus the World Championship, the World Champion himself, piloting the deck that he pioneered, This is going to be fascinating to see if Michael Hamilton can find a way to break through the defenses of Charles Dunn.
And you're exactly right. We have, I mean, the past 2 games, we've covered this exact same matchup. We're going to see that again, but because of the differences in these players' playstyles, in these players' decks, we are still in for a treat here.
Absolutely. It's like at U.S. Nationals when everybody figured out what Lightning Briar was. They brought it to that tournament. It did incredibly well, but one man stood supreme among the rest, and Tarek Patel, he built that deck. He knew that deck in a way that nobody else could. And this is Michael Hamilton's deck, y'all. Like, he made this thing from nothing in the basement screaming, "It's alive!" Like, he knows this thing more than anyone else. If there's anybody that has the chance to break through the defenses of Charles Dunn, I think it's got to be him.
I think so too, and I don't think he's running a freezing point, so I'm wondering what his answer is going to be to this fatigue style Oldhim, which again, we talked about it. Everyone knew this was going to be present at this calling. We definitely can infer that Michael Hamilton has something in the bag for this matchup.
Yeah, a fair number of times he's been in interviews and said something like, well, I've never really played this matchup, but, you know, I think I just kind of played the cards, but he knew what was coming in this event. You know, he and Roger were talking and figuring out what the tech that they wanted. So we're going to be getting into that game momentarily here, you guys. And great, we're going to be starting in just a moment, so don't go anywhere. We have the finals of the Calling Indianapolis. It is Charles Dunn versus Michael Hamilton. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to the finals of the Calling Indianapolis. We have a cold, cold final to share with you all today. It is Charles Dunn on Oldhim, the first seed of the tournament, coming in against Michael Hamilton, the second seed. We've got a 1v2 match for the Calling. One of those tournaments that just makes sense. These two are the two best all weekend, and they're coming into the final right now to battle for the title of Calling Champion.
Absolutely. And I don't know, have we seen this matchup before this weekend, Sam?
Yeah, I'm actually very excited about this one.
Yeah, this is new and unique.
There's a lot of nuance to this that we get to talk about. I feel like there's a whole host, a world of options of topics that we can really dive into that the viewer might not be informed about.
Exactly, and also topics that we haven't covered yet in the previous two games.
No.
As we talk about, this is an absolutely unique matchup.
Yeah,
right
absolutely. So Oldhim versus Iyslander. Now, in all seriousness, for those of you who are just joining us or recently joining us, this is the third of our matchups during this top 8 stream that feature these two heroes, but we've gone through them very differently. We've seen Michael Hamilton work through a more aggressive style Oldhim list, a more kind of classic, just without the Winter's Wail. Then last game we saw Charles Dunn emerge victorious against MajiinBae, and Charles is playing this very defensive, fatiguey Oldhim list. And now what we haven't seen is the world champion himself navigating this matchup with the deck that he created. So this is going to be a very interesting experience to see. Can Michael Hamilton find the secret sauce, find the key, break open this matchup in a way that the other competitors so far have not been able to do?
And already in the equipment loadout, we see that difference. Michael Hamilton opting to go for the Metacarpus node in this matchup instead of that Ironhide. Now that is huge. We saw MajiinBae, he did come up a little short at the end of that game. Charles Dunn survived at 2 life. Perhaps 2 triggers of the Metacarpus node maybe gets him over the finish line. Michael Hamilton recognizing this, recognizing what sort of Oldhim he's up against. He's saying, let me bring the more offensive arm piece here because you aren't going to be sending too many attacks at me for me to need to care about an Ironhide gauntlet.
So right off the bat, I don't want to say world champ difference, but I do want to say we can see Michael Hamilton making decisions that, might be more unique to his line of thinking about the deck that he created here. This is going to be an attack coming in for, I believe, just 6, easily blocked up by the 2 frostings. Michael Hamilton's probably fine to see those go away, and he's going to be able to block it up, see if he can find one of those precious permanents that he wants to resolve. In the last game, the Iyslander was able to resolve 3 Insidious Chills, 3 Frost Hexes, and 2 energy potions, but the Imperial Warhorn was so effective from the Oldhim player to knock some of that away a couple different times.
Absolutely. So the first half of this game is going to come down to that. How fast can either side build up that board state? Michael Hamilton wants to find all the chills, all the frost hexes. Charles Dunn wants to find the Warhorn. Now, one strategy that we did not see MajiinBae try and do in the previous matchup, but what we might see Michael Hamilton do is actually pitch stack those board state pieces to put Charles Dunn in that space where, okay, you've got the Warhorn set up, but you do need to recur them. You do need to remembrance and find them again. But if Michael Hamilton says, I'm going to set up my board state pieces across 2 turns by pitch stacking all of them together, you don't have enough time to find the Warhorn again.
Absolutely. No, that's a very good point. I'm honestly, we made the joke that we've seen this matchup a number of times, but I'm juiced. I'm really excited to see it again. I'm excited to see what the difference is. We see Michael Hamilton opting to resolve the Channel Lake Frigid, putting the second Channel Lake Frigid on the bottom of his deck, then pitching the Heart of Findall to the Waning Moon, gaining a life and threatening 3 Arcane. His 2 Arcane, yeah, it's on his own turn. His deck placement is going to make his pitch a little hard to look at with the glare, but I guess he can do no wrong, can he?
Definitely. That is the world champ difference right there. We heard it on the interview yesterday. He puts his deck on the left side for that, little bit of an edge, along with that Chipotle order that he always has.
You're absolutely right, yeah. Critical information here. So let's see how he's going to fight through this Channel Lake Frigid. Most likely, it's just going to be a hammer swing.
Just the hammer. Holding on to that steadfast in his hand is Charles Dunn. So obviously, he can't use that over here because it costs 3 and there's a Channel Lake Frigid on the field. So he's holding on to it. He's saying, I'm going to save this for when you try and send a big arcane damage at me.
Let's take a look at what Michael Hamilton has in his hand, what he might be wanting to block with. We see the Emeritus, we see the Winter's Bite, we can see a Scar for a Scar, looks like, and then a yellow, perhaps, Aether Ice Vein. So it looks like he's going to be content. When you're still up at he's actually higher than where he started. When you're at this point, you're able to take this Titan's Fist. And again, man, imagine if that's Winter's Wail here. Imagine if that's Winter's Wail. We've already seen such dominance from Oldhim, and he didn't even have what was clearly the most powerful weapon currently in Flesh and Blood as of a week and a half ago.
Absolutely. Rosetta Thorn would like to have a word with you, but yes, if there's another very most powerful weapon in the game, it is definitely that Winter's Wail, which is out of the classic constructed meta right now.
Winter's Wail doesn't give you a frostbite.
Rosetta
I mean,
Thorn.
well, Winter's Wail doesn't give you anything. It's gone.
Yeah, well, Winter's Wail doesn't split its damage across 2 different damage types.
I don't want to argue with you. I don't want to fight. Can we just watch the game, please?
All right, let's watch this again. So, Scar for Scar in Michael Hamilton's in Michael Hamilton's hand, obviously live right here. And he did pitch a Heart of Final very early on. So that is something he is fortunate to see. He does want to see that card early, to see that very early in his pitch stack so he can get more and more value out of that card.
So here we go. That Scar for Scar is going to be coming in for the 4 damage. He is at lower life. It is going to have go again.
So Michael Hamilton doesn't know this, but that Channeling Fridge is actually stopping that Steadfast that Charleston chose to keep in his hand.
Absolutely.
Now that Steadfast costs 4, and that is so much more than 3 in this game, because that represents a full extra card that you need to pitch.
Interesting as well that Charles Dunn chose not to pitch the Steadfast away, knowing the Channel Lake Frigid was still going to be there, because at least for this next turn, if he's valuing keeping it around for even the following turn cycle at this point.
Definitely, and now he's caught on a little bit of an awkward hand. Is that a Sunkiss or an Healing Bomb? It's one of those cards in his hand, which, you know, only blocks 2, so it's a little bit awkward of it. And the Remembrance, of course, as well, blocking 0.
It'd be pretty impressive if Michael Hamilton is able to get some physical attacks to actually do some damage through this Oldhim player. That will be the World Champ difference.
Definitely. And now Remembrance finding it this early is one of the awkwardness that this Warhorn plan does put you in, because you definitely want to find a Remembrance to recur the Warhorn, but if you find your Remembrance before you find your Warhorn, you're just stuck with this kind of icky yellow no block in your hand. And what are you going to do about it? If you're going to pitch it and then you see a Warhorn early after that, your Remembrance is all the way at the bottom of your deck. If you just keep it in Arsenal forever, you're not going to get value out of your Karna Seeds.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point. Yeah, the Remembrance early in the game is not something you want to see.
Yep, it does put Charles Dunn in a bit of a bind as to what to do with the card. And honestly, holding on to that Steadfast through his Channel Lake Frigid also proving to be pretty awkward for him here.
Yeah, it looks as though he took the damage from the Scar for Scar. The Crown of Seeds damage, I'm assuming, it reduced it down to 3. Oh yeah, there we go. He just adjusted that right there. The thing about this Winter's Bite as well is it's going to allow Michael to, if he wishes to, push a couple arcane damage, because now he has satisfied the Waning Moon clause of playing a non-attack action, but instead, this is just going to be a Red Aether Ice Fan. He has seen Charles Dunn have an inability or an inefficiency in dealing with his effects so far, and he's going to use the one floating, and that is going to allow him to Steadfast this Red Aether Ice Fan. And Michael Hamilton, at this point, he's got to know that Steadfast is in the list. We're at the finals, the Calling. He was just on coverage. So one of his friends probably walked up and said, hey, watch out for Steadfast.
Absolutely. Although I do think we only saw 1 Steadfast in Charles Dunn's list, but of course 3 Oasis Respites. And we were quite surprised at how he was willing to use his Oasis Respites early, and this is the answer, because he knew he still had 1 more of those tall damage prevention effects left in his deck. Now, of course, he uses Steadfast here to cover up a Red Ice Vein, but he's got 3 Oases that we know about.
The other point of this picture, shall we say, from Michael Hamilton is by doing that all on his own turn, once again, you're in the classic Iyslander situation of you're able to throw some damage while they have lost all their cards and all their tempo. Charles Dunn, we've seen him, he prioritizes as often as he can getting the card in the arsenal to allow for his Crown of Seeds to do what it wants to do. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how much damage Michael Hamilton is able to leak. He's representing at least 6 from my numbers.
Absolutely. And one thing we didn't talk about the Red Winter's Bite that Michael Hamilton played, Charles Dunn discarded his Sunkiss to that. That was 3 life that
Wow.
Red Winter's Bite basically gained Michael. Oh, that's 3 damage that Michael Hamilton effectively dealt with that Red Winter's Bite.
But that's absolutely, I mean, I think that's an incredibly good point. We saw in the last game, we did some quick muths, but that Oldhim gained enough life to keep him alive. Like Charles Dunn in the last game gained enough life to survive all of the effects of the Iyslander player. So for Michael Hamilton to get basically one of those life gain spells out of the way with just his Red Winter's Bite, I think that's, if the Winter's Bite proves to be the difference here, that will be pretty interesting to watch.
That would absolutely be a very big win for Michael Hamilton. Now, this time, I believe, is that a Frost Hex in his hand, the one you elected to keep?
Frost Hex, he's got a Wounded Bull, Ice Eternal, Aether Hail.
Yep, so we're likely to see the Ice Eternal being pitched here as part of that pitch tag that we saw in the previous matchup as well. Ice Eternal, not a very good card if you don't have your Frost Hexes set up, but in your second cycle, after you've gone through your first cycle, setting up all your board state, that card is an absolute train to deal with.
Charles Dunn, and here's the thing. Eventually, these not Frosty Hammers, just these hammers are going to add up. I have PTSD, man. Eventually, these hammer swings are going to add up, and he's electing to just keep the cards in his hand to just, again, prevent whatever damage Michael Hamilton elects to throw, and then just go ahead and gain 3 life here off the Sigil of Solace.
Absolutely. And I don't think we managed to catch what Michael Hamilton put in Arsenal here, but knowing him, knowing his preferences, shall we say, we can expect that to be a red card that he's just parked in there to try and send on his turn at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. In this matchup, there are going to be times where I bet you Michael Hamilton feels very comfortable arsenaling a red card if he thinks he's not going to be under much pressure other than a hammer swing. And my gosh, Pankaj, you've called it. We've got a Finals Fighting Spirit coming in. It is going to gain him a life, depending on what he elects to pitch. You can see he's very carefully setting up the pitch stack. You can see when a player takes that much time to think about what they want to pitch, it's apparent. They know how important every card is. They have, in a lot of these cases, they have every card memorized. They draw a 4-card hand in the second cycle of the game, and they know what's coming next. So it's very imperative that they take their decisions and they use it, or they take it seriously, and they don't move too quickly through these decision points.
So there's a very important thing about what happened there with that pitch. I think Michael Hamilton was considering pitching the Wounded Bull to get it out of his hand because he wants to make sure he draws enough blues to develop this Frost Hex and also do something aggressive on his own turn. However, I think why he rolled that back and didn't want to pitch a red in the end was because he would then be pitching a red next to his Ice Eternal. And we saw in that previous matchup when MajiinBae drew up the hand with 1 red when he wanted to go for the Ice Eternal, that was just not very good. And Michael Hamilton does not want to put himself in that position. He's saying, it's fine, I'll keep this red in my hand.
That's a fantastic point.
Thank you.
You're very good at what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. I think you're absolutely right. We have this hammer coming in. Again, it doesn't represent the Frostbite. He's going to be able to, it looks like he's just going to elect to take it until those, but we haven't seen any big attacks from Charles Dunn. We haven't seen any dominated Mantra Grandes. We haven't seen any Glacial Footsteps. Remember on the first turn of the last game, that was the first turn of the game, was a fused Glacial Footsteps that came in and dealt some damage. So now Michael Hamilton sees shields down. I'm resolving my first Frost Hex.
Absolutely, and he did keep the Wounded Bull in hand, so he will be able to send that on his own turn, and looks like Arsenal and Sid is chill. So it looks like Michael Hamilton is not going through the game plan that we talked about earlier, where he's going to pitch these board state pieces and try and resolve them quickly over the course of 2 turns to try and mitigate the Warhorn plan. So let's see whether this works out for him.
Because once you get one out, you want to get the other ones out as quickly as you can, especially in the case of the Frost Hex, because if you're able to get some value off of them, you want them to stack. You want to be able to be forcing 2 to 3 damage rather than the 1. So it'll be interesting to see, can he find them in the right time?
Absolutely. Well, Michael Hamilton actually choosing to pitch this Insidious Chill away and Arsenal Emeritus Scolding instead. I think he's saying, this is a bit of a window for me to chip some damage into Charles Dunn by sending an 8 attack on my own turn and representing 7 arcane damage on Charles Dunn's turn. He's saying, okay, I found a bit of a window. I'm going to try and use this to leak some damage in, and I'll try and resolve this Insidious Chill later. Let's just send it to the bottom for now.
Absolutely. We do have some word from the Battle Hardened here in Indianapolis. It is a wizard. It is not Iyslander. It's Kano. Kano coming in with, I'm just going to give a little, Kano came in, taken down the Battle Hardened here at Indianapolis. We are getting word of the player, Christian Splits. It's Splits. It's not Christian Splits. That's not a person. I mean, that's probably a person somewhere, but it's a Blitz Battle Hardened here that Kano was able to come out and take the tournament down. So congratulations to that player. We'll get their name and we'll try to give them some love and give them some shout outs later.
Absolutely. That Stormstrider's unbanning coming back in to allow Kano to win that Battle Hardened. Now, we see a bit of an awkward block from Charles Dunn. He isn't even covering up this Wounded Bull entirely. He is leaking 1 from it and using 3 cards for that. That is incredibly inefficient. And we see Michael Hamilton probably going to be rewarded for arsening the Emeritus Scolding. That's going to leak probably, well, 3 damage, unless, Charles Dunn goes ahead and uses the Crown Seeds and try and prevent more of it.
That's an Emeritus in his arsenal?
Yes, he opted to pitch the Insidious Shield
that's interesting.
to put Emeritus in his arsenal, so...
That's very interesting. I know from, when I was picking up Iyslander, I did as much as I could to learn about the hero and learn from the man himself, and he said he likes to play those Emeritus Scoldings as kill turn spells. He likes to use them on the turn he wins the game. So having him arsenal it here, I'm super curious as to that line of play.
Yeah, so Tunic is up, so it is still, pretty valuable to do that, especially if you followed it up with an 8 damage Wounded Bull. That is 15 damage you're representing across the turn cycle.
Absolutely.
So still pretty strong, but again, both players just proving me wrong here because Michael Hamilton did not go ahead and use the Emeritus Scolding. So he is open to the Ice React at this point. Let's see whether Charles Dunn goes for it, because he might be expecting the, obviously a big red attack like a Flying Spear or Wounded Bull. So it looks like he doesn't. Maybe he just didn't have the Ice card in his hand.
It was. Peter Budensick winning the battle hardened on Kano. Big shout outs to him. We had him on stream yesterday. He lost the win and in to get into the calling, and he said, you know what, I can do you one better. I'm going to go win the battle hardened. So big congratulations to Peter. I know he works incredibly hard, and that's awesome. I'm happy for him.
Absolutely. Great run from him there. Now, Charles Dunn did not have that ice card to punish Michael Hamilton for going for the E-Strike go again. And now this is possibly the opening that Michael Hamilton wanted. We'll see whether he opts to do the Emeritus Scolding now while Charles Dunn has absolutely no cards in his hand. However, with the Tunic and Crown of Seeds, he could just magically get a card from the top of his deck.
Interesting game so far.
Absolutely.
You know what? A lot to talk about.
Yep. Very unique things. We definitely haven't talked about these things before.
No.
So Michael Hamilton having a think here, choosing and deciding whether he wants to do the Emeritus Scolding now. Charles Dunn just waiting in limbo here. Mr. Wizard player, can I have my turn yet?
Pitching 2 reds to the bottom. That's fantastic, right? A couple Arsenal, or not Arsenal, but red threats for later in the game.
At the same time, that does make this Emeritus Scolding quite inefficient. I'm not sure that Michael Hamilton is happy to see that.
Because it's another red Winter's Bite. He had 3 reds in that
That
hand.
was 3 reds in the hand. Michael Hamilton definitely not happy to see that. Now, that was in response to the Tunic activation, I believe. Yep, and then Charles Dunn just used this Tunic to block 1 damage, from the Emeritus Scolding and opting not to use the Crown of Seeds yet. But that is 3 res in a row at the bottom of Michael Hamilton's deck.
Yeah, and he's going to have to find some pitch for them because none of those are E-Strikes. You can't cheat any of those as cards with your Enlightened Strike.
Absolutely. So at some point in this game, he's going to draw into a string of reds again, and let's see if he's able to work his way out of that. Now, of course, one of those is a Winter's Bite with Go again, so he could have the play later on where he goes Winter's Bite into a big attack.
Pedal to the metal. Just getting a quick shout out. And we're going to resolve the second Frost Hex here. Now, with all these cards in hand, you have to imagine this Frostbite's can be dealt with cleanly. But Michael Hamilton now has enough cards. He just put a blue to the bottom. That can help with those reds that are currently down there at the bottom of the deck.
Absolutely. Still no Insidious Shield set up by Michael Hamilton over here. And that is the 3rd Frost Hex. Now, Charles is saying, hey, you found all 3 Frost Hexes? You even found a Chill that you pitched to the bottom? Where is my Warhorn? Excuse me, deck.
Trying to see if it's in his hand right now. It doesn't look like it, no. But we see 3 Frost Hexes. I mean, so for the Iyslander, this is what you want to see. It's kind of what you have to see if you want to get through some of these defensive turtley style decks. So he has resolved all 3 of them. The question is he going to be able to utilize their effect to actually close the game out? I mean, this is the closest it's felt watching this Fatigue Oldhim list. This is the most almost interactive and back and forth that's seen. At one point, Michael Hamilton was actually above Charles Dunn in life as the Iyslander player facing a Fatigue Oldhim. So this is feeling like a game.
We definitely have a bit more of an interactive game going on here as compared to the previous one, for sure. Now, one thing though, Michael Hamilton seems to not want to give Charles Dunn the opportunity to get value from the Warhorn. He knows it is there, so he's saying, I'm going to set up Frost Hexes, but if I don't set up anything on my side of the board, your Warhorn's only getting half the value, and potentially that's why he pitched that Insidious Shield to the bottom of the deck, as we saw earlier.
What's interesting is, with the Remembrance for Charles Dunn, if he does elect to use that first when he finds that Warhorn and when he does eventually activate it, his pitch is going to get all messed up. There isn't going to be the stack, so there is a chance that just by the luck of the draw, he gets it on the next turn or the turn after. So even though Michael Hamilton's very carefully setting up a pitch stack in order to prevent against that, there is a chance that because of the Remembrance, the Warhorn could come back at a brutal and critical time.
Definitely could. And we also have spoken about the Crown of Seeds, obviously turboing Charles Dunn through his deck to find the Warhorn.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
So this E-Strike coming in with Dominate because Charles Dunn did not pay for the Polar Blast. So that's 7 Dominate. Dominate.
You did it. You nailed it.
Yeah. So likely going to be leaking some damage here is Charles Dunn.
But again, as we saw in the first game with Michael Hamilton with the Sink Below, this is, if you can only block with 1 card, this is the card you want to use. It's the card that blocks 4. We're not playing Briar here. You don't have a plethora,
Yep, and here we see the yellow Autumn Touch coming in for what we talked about, using the Earth React with Oldhim. Of course, he had to pitch a blue with it as well, but that extra 2 resources is going to perfectly counteract the 2 damage from the Waning Moon, which Michael Hamilton is representing with that 2 floating that he has.
Absolutely. Remember when Autumn Touch was banned or suspended?
Yes, back when, yeah,
We don't talk
Oh,
about
sorry.
yes, for
Starvo.
that hero.
I'm so sorry.
Flesh and blood is hard.
You know what? I feel like we underutilized that little moment.
Yeah,
We were just so invested in the game, but at the end of the day, the world champion is not wrong. Flesh and blood is hard.
it's actually a difficult game.
My English teacher used to say, my English teacher would say in response to that, flesh and blood is difficult.
Ah.
Rocks are hard. So if you're listening, Miss Summer, which I don't think you are, know that I remember your lessons.
What? Miss Summer's not a Flesh and Blood fan?
I don't think so.
Oh, and she doesn't want to see her favorite student, her top class student, like out here casting?
I don't think she does.
Oh, man.
That's right. We love you, Miss Summer. All right. That was a Scar for 4. It had go again. It is going to go ahead and get 1 damage across. And then this is now an Enlightened Strike for 7 with a card in hand. So, again, Iyslander sometimes has trouble using all the cards. And
Absolutely.
this is one of those times. But we're still representing a fair amount of damage. We're taking cards out of the Oldhim's deck. And if we're waiting for a moment of breakthrough. But I do feel like it's very important that those 3 Frost Hexes have been set up in the way that they have been.
Absolutely. And no non-attack being played here means that Michael Hamilton can't use that last card to Winning Moon. And of course, he no longer has an action point either, so no, cheeky Red Winter Spite coming at the end of this or something like that. Now, over on Charles Dunn's side, he does have an Oasis Respite in hand with the Tunic up, so we might see him use that and go ahead to his turn, maybe just use that Healing Balm that he's holding on to.
He's got the Respite, got the Heart. Ironically, it's not going to gain him any life here.
Absolutely.
He is at more life, unless he elects to take this damage, take on... These players are very good at taking a little bit of damage, mitigating some of the damage, but turning on their life gain effects.
Yep, so it looks like he opts to use the Tunic to activate the Crown of Seed rather than Oasis Respite, saying, you know what, give me a blocking card, because I don't like holding on to Oasis Respite and Heart of Final in the same hand. Yep, so it looks like he's lining up a 3-block. Let's see whether he reacts to the Oasis Respite or whether he just chooses to leak 3 damage, because including Crown of Seed's damage prevention. And this could be exactly what you were talking about. He has now gone lower than Michael Hamilton, holding onto his Heart of Final for his own turn.
Yeah, it's Arcanite Skullcap was the training wheels for players to learn how to use Heart of Findall and Oasis Respite.
Absolutely. I miss Arcanite Skullcap.
It hasn't gone anywhere. I'm sure it misses you. Just pick it up and use it.
Well, this Crown Providence is just kind of strictly better. Although, with Outsiders coming out and Ninjas and Rangers
100%.
caring all about those on-hits, Arcanite Skullcap might come back into the meta.
Isaac Jessen won a Pro Quest in Northern California using Arcanite Skullcap because I don't think he has the Crown of Providence.
Absolutely amazing.
He said, no problem. I hate that. I'm never saying it again.
So Charles Dunn, expertly went below Michael Hamilton on Michael Hamilton's turn to try and activate it, to try and turn on his own Heart of Final, but then, he Healing Bombed and went back up above Michael Hamilton. So that Heart of Final, not live right now.
And fascinatingly enough, by doing this, he's put himself at a point. Michael Hamilton now gets the go again on the Scar for Scar. These players are dancing back and forth with their life totals, trying to turn on these effects for when the cards need them to be at a certain life total, and they keep doing it effectively, but then kind of inadvertently turning on the effect for the other players. It's very funny to watch.
Absolutely, and Michael Hamilton does run a lot of these cards that care about him being lower than the opponent. Wounded Bulls, Fighting Spirits, Scar for Scar. So Charles Dunn with that Healing Bomb play actually, yeah, like you said, turned on the Scar for Scar, turned on any Wounded Bulls that Michael Hamilton might have.
Yeah, and we're a couple turns away. We're 2 or 3 turns away from reaching the end of these first cycle of our deck, right? It's turn 11, around turn 15 that we're going to see. I mean, and with the Crown of Seeds, it's probably going to be a little earlier because, as you say, we're moving through the deck faster. So that Warhorn has to be coming up relatively soon.
And here we see the yellow Ice Vein. Now, critically, Charleston still has one damage prevention floating from that Earth React. Now, even though that Earth React was used on a physical attack, that damage prevention carries on to any further damage happening this turn, including arcane damage. So we see Michael Hamilton going with that yellow Ice Vein, fusing with an Ice card, and then responding to that, activating the Waning Moon, pitching that fuse, the Ice card that he revealed. So he's trying to soak up that Earth damage prevention with this Waning Moon, so that this Ice Vein can hopefully leak that last point of damage. Although, with Crown of Seed still up, that is maybe unlikely, but he is putting Charles Dunn into that uncomfortable position.
Yeah, it's a very heads-up play from Michael, recognizing that prevention is floating, and before the Aether Ice Vein is allowed to resolve, responding to it with his own Waning Moon.
Absolutely. So let's see how Charles Dunn responds to this. He might be... we have seen him be caught in some awkward hands throughout the course of the game. Maybe he's holding on to not enough blues. We can try and see. He's, trying to keep his secret from
Thunderquake.
That does look like 2 blues. If mine eyes don't deceive me.
Mine eyes.
Mine eyes.
Mine eyes don't deceive me.
I feel like that's a line from somewhere. You tell me, is this like some Shakespeare line or something? Mine eyes. I feel like it has to be somewhere.
Yeah, it's Elizabethan.
Yes, that. I totally knew that. Okay, so here's Charles Dunn pitching to prevent the waning moon damage, it looks like. You're floating one, keeping that earth damage prevention.
Charleston helpfully representing that prevention with the die on the Oldhim card there, showing I still have 1 damage up as well.
Absolutely. And with this, Michael Hamilton, once again, has put Charles Dunn in that position where it's going to his turn and he has no cards up. And this time he doesn't even have the Tunic to try and Tunic and activate the Crown of Seeds. So another opening that Michael Hamilton has crafted for himself with 3 Frost Hexes on Charles Dunn's side of the field. So let's see if he capitalizes on this. Now, Charles Dunn hasn't quite drawn up. He just kept his cards ready. He hasn't drawn them up yet.
I'm ready. You know, and interestingly enough, he did a fair amount of work to prevent all the damage from the Aether Ice Vein, and that's probably preferable to taking damage and responding to the trigger. But the effect of the Aether Ice Vein was still there. All the cards are out of Charles Dunn's hand.
Absolutely,
right?
no damage was leaked.
No damage was leaked, but he has no cards. So we're going to see an ice. We're going to see an Ice Eternal, and he has nothing. And he has nothing to activate.
This is absolutely amazing.
This is insane.
Without any chills, Michael Hamilton has managed to pull this off. Now he didn't activate Tunic to make this go up to x equals to 5, so this is just x equals to 4, and he is floating a resource right here, and he's using it to Waning Moon, coming with an additional 3 damage.
This is wild, man.
Nuts. These Frostbites can represent an additional 12 damage.
Charleston has to take the 2 off of this Waning Moon.
And he's down to 8. He is well within Strider's range at this point.
Michael Hamilton, look, he's very clearly setting up the pitch cycle. You wonder if he's putting an Ice Eternal back on top of his deck. That was insane.
Wow.
I mean, we've been trying to talk through and talk about the intricacies, kind of expecting what just happened to take a little longer. I think we missed that Ice Eternal was sitting in the Arse Eternal. The Ice Eternal was
the Arse Eternal. So curiously, I'm very curious to why Michael Hamilton didn't activate Tunic there, because that would have been an extra Frostbite representing a further, 4 damage. But I guess that would have maybe stopped him from activating the Waning Moon, so perhaps that's why he opted not to use it there.
The Waning Moon only representing 2 damage, though. You wonder if that's the trade-off you want to make. So this is dominated, so he is going to go ahead and cover up 4 of it, only taking 4. Charles Dunn here, though, is not happy to be sitting at 8, because at this point, we're at that overextending range. Not now because the arsenal is empty, but if you try to do too much, you can die from 8.
Absolutely.
I gotta do it for the Ice Eternal. I gotta do it.
Yep. Charleston definitely quite unhappy not having found his Warhorn yet. I don't believe, we definitely haven't seen a pitch, and I don't think that's been sitting in his arsenal all this time. So he definitely was hoping that he would have seen it earlier in this game. Even getting rid of 1 Frost Hex there would have saved him 4 life if he managed to find the Warhorn earlier.
Man, that was so cool.
That was an amazing ice.
That was so sick.
The fact that he accomplished that without having a single Insidious Chill on the board is it is absolutely wild.
And you wonder if Charles Dunn himself was waiting for the Insidious Chills, if it was almost not baited, but like we were all surprised because there's an order to these things, right? There's a process. You set up your Insidious Chills, you trigger them, but he just represented enough damage and enough threatening. Charleston wants to stay alive. That's the whole point of the deck. You just stay alive. You run your opponent under threat. So he used that almost against him, got all the cards out of his hand, and then came in for just an enormous swing of damage.
Exactly. You have to wonder whether Charles Dunn was lulled into a false sense of security. They're saying, you don't have chills. It's fine. I can give you my hand to block out your turn. What's the most they're going to do to me? Michael Hamilton says, 15.
Yeah, actually.
That is what I'm going to do to you.
Oh, man. Oh, comrade.
Comrade of the people.
Yeah.
So Charles Dunn back to his very disciplined style that we've seen him do in the previous matchup as well. So just firing the hammer, keeping 3 cards in hand, keeping the card in arsenal.
Very interestingly, we're blocking with the red Aether Ice Vein. That's most likely very measured and very disciplined and not just cocky and confident, right? Because that red Aether Ice Vein is a very threatening, very relevant effect that you want to see at various times throughout this game.
Absolutely. Remember, Michael Hamilton pulled off the massive Ice Eternal play on the back of a Scarfar's card into a yellow Ice Vein. So the fact that he's giving up this red Ice Vein here just as a block 3 means that he has something more spicy. Oh, it's another red. It's a different red.
It's a red Aether Ice Vein.
Red Ice
It's a red
Vein.
Aether Ice Vein.
Yep. Holding onto a red Winter's Bite here, so could be pitching that in addition to a Tunic counter to activate a Waning Moon if he chooses to, or he might just be holding on to it to do a Winter's Bite into, a big red attack. Now, again, Michael Hamilton pitching that Insidious Chill away. This is the second one we've seen him pitch. He's saying, you know what, I don't need this. I just dealt you 15 without a single Insidious Chill. I can do it again.
Yeah, and critically, that Aether Ice Vein was the only card he could block with and send this Aether Ice Vein on his own turn. He needed the blue to pitch for it, and he needed an ice card to fuse, and these other cards also only block 2. This Oasis Respite's going to come in and clean up. This is the second time a Respite has been used on the Aether Ice Vein, on Aether Ice Veins here, so this is going to clear up all the damage. It's going to gain him a life, and he's not going to have to respond to the damage off the Aether.
Yep. So Charleston, doing the correct sequencing here, was very heads up by him. Now, people have made this mistake before where they will say, okay, I will AB 1, and then I'll Oasis Respite. Now, that's actually not allowed because AB is a replacement effect. So by the time you say that you AB it, you no longer have a priority window to play that instant that is Oasis Respite. So, just calling out that he did, sequence that properly on his end.
Yeah, because Charles Dunn's clearly an exceptional Flesh and Blood player.
Of course,
He was the #1 seed coming into the Calling and has just rolled through the tournament. So, it's good to see that he
knows his priority windows, definitely. But, some viewers in the chat may not know that is the sequence you have to do.
1,000%. Oh, I certainly didn't know.
No.
I'm not Charles Dunn. I appreciated it. And this is what I wanted to talk about. So he's coming in with this Winter's Bite here. He had the opportunity on the last turn. He had a card in his arsenal already. This Winter's Bite could have been turned into, and what I'm saying right now is not true because you need 2 to pitch to the Waning Moon. So the thing that I was about to say, let's just pretend I didn't say it.
He did have Tunic up, so he could have, but I guess he just didn't think the Tunic was worth just 2 damage.
2 damage, yeah, for sure. Looks like we're going to see our first Insidious Chill resolved, and then the damage is going to come in off the Waning Moon.
Yep, so Charleston's saying, okay, you finally set up a piece on your end. Warhorn, where are you?
Yeah, we haven't seen one yet, and it's interesting. This Insidious Chill, it's almost like he was forced into playing it. We know Michael Hamilton, we know Flesh and Blood players, they value their action points. He's taken every opportunity he can to put these cards at the bottom of his deck. We've also seen all 3 red Aether Ice Veins, so he's going to have to find other Ice Fusion cards to trigger it, but it doesn't seem like that's even really his game plan. He's not playing towards the Ice Fusion as much as he is playing towards, again, almost like the tempo of taking the cards out of the hand and finding the spot to come in for the damage. He came in for so much damage that he has now put himself in a position to find a way to kill his opponent. Charles Dunn, find a way to win a game of Flesh and Blood. I don't think Michael Hamilton has any violence in his body, but he wants to win this game of Flesh and Blood here. He needs to find a way to close the gap.
You're exactly right. He had just come into his game plan He's just come into this game with the same game plan he brings to every matchup, just raw efficiency. I'm going to outmath you. That is what Michael Hamilton said.
Yeah. Outmath the Math Lord, man. We've seen it a couple times. Will we see it again in the finals of this Calling?
Yep. So Charles Dunn having a big old think over here. We have to wonder, is that Warhorn in his arsenal? Is that what he's thinking about? Because we've seen him play. He's probably not thinking about trying to swing the Titan's Fist here. He's just thinking, am I supposed to take an action here, or am I just passing priority?
And he made the motion of pass priority, so we'll see if Michael Hamilton wants to respond. It's always interesting at these points, because can you find the way to leak some damage when they have 2 cards in hand that are most likely blues? And we've already seen the red Aethers used and pitched and blocked with, right? Or just used and blocked with, so we can see, let's take a look at what's in Michael's hand here. We're going to see a Frosting, a Channel Lake Frigid, I think a Polar Blast, and the final card that whipped by me too fast to see, but a bunch of ice blues here.
Mm-hmm. So we have to point out, I believe we are at turn 15. Yes, so these players are at their pitch stack at this point. So Michael Hamilton is down to mostly blues in his deck, except for that string of 3 reds that he awkwardly had to pitch. So Michael Hamilton does seem to have run out of most of the threats, but he has gotten Charles Dunn down to 12. So we have a bit of a nail biter here. Let's see if we can close it out.
And with the Insidious Chill there, as long as it sticks on the board, that represents a way to get some cards out of the hand. It's looking like, from what we've seen, Michael Hamilton's game plan here is to... Is that another Ice Eternal? It's another Ice Eternal. Yeah, it's going to be fused, so it's going to be coming in for a bunch of Frostbites. Now, critically, there is a card in the arsenal, and there is also a Tunic counter. So, but that's a red.
Yeah, it was a red Sigil of Solace. And this time, Michael Hamilton does opt to use that Tunic counter. So this is X equals to 5. So it's representing 5 on its own into a further 15 from those Frost Hexes. And with 5 Frostbites and just 1 card in hand, Charles Dunn cannot break those Frostbites. That's going to be 15 damage at the end of this turn.
Is this the turn?
So
Flesh and blood is hard.
Is this the turn?
This is it. This is
the
it. Michael Hamilton
turn.
did it.
Just like that. He had the red Sigil of Solace in hand. He drew a Sink Below. And with incredible Ice Eternal maneuvering, Michael Hamilton just came out of nowhere. And to look at him, I'm not even sure he can believe it. He took this calling from an Oldhim deck that had just been eating these decks for lunch.
This is absolutely wild. And this is with pitching 2 Insidious Shields to the bottom. He only got 1 trigger off an Insidious Shield that entire game. That could have been an Amulet of Ice. That could have been just a single Amulet of Ice. That's the only thing he triggered, the only way he forced this card out of the Oldhim opponent's hand, and he managed to get there against that Fatigue Oldhim.
Again, these came. We thought there was an order to these things. We thought there was a way for these things normally go. We're sitting here like, how is he going to make this work? And then all of a sudden, it's like this is a lot of Frostbites. I don't think he has a way. Is this the turn? And then we hear applause. That's game over.
He didn't even use Storm Striders that game, Sam. He's just that Storm Strider just sitting there. He just
Oh my
2 Insidious
God.
Shields to the bottom, just resolved 1 trigger of a single Insidious Shield. Didn't even need the Storm Striders. Michael Hamilton kind of showing us why he is considered the best player in the world right now.
I mean, that was absolutely fantastic. I feel like this is the kind of thing, like, I want to say, like, Flesh and Blood players are going to study this game for months and years to come. I mean, we're in an interesting meta here. I mean, we saw so many Ice heroes come out to play and do so very well, but at the end of the day, one man stands at the top of the mountaintop once again, showing that even in the face of a deck that seemed pretty oppressive, it seemed like it was challenging for players to find a way through Charles Dunn's strategy here. But Michael Hamilton utilizing those Ice Eternals, utilizing the tempo of that game and recognizing maybe just even the way that Charles was sitting there, like thinking through how to handle that turn. I mean, that Sigil of Solace in the hand, I'm like flustered. That was insane to watch.
Above everything, Michael Hamilton just utilized the power of math in that game, showing us that the first Ice Eternal came in, that turn was 15. It was 12 from Frostbites plus another 3 on the Waning Moon. Oh, plus 4 from Ice Eternal itself. And that last turn, that was, 20 damage from that Ice Eternal. He's just showing us math's going to get you there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and without the setup, the entire setup that we expected to see the Insidious Chills as a way to fight through, but he found other ways to fight through the cards in Charles's hand and make that Ice Eternal as effective as possible. Let's get one more look at the bracket here.
Michael Hamilton, our winner. Now, at this point, you have to wonder, this man single-handedly gave Iyslander 300 LL points? It was 100 from US Nationals, 200 from Worlds, and now he wins yet another calling on his signature hero. Are we LLing Iyslander at this point, or are we LLing Michael Hamilton himself?
Absolutely. So we are going to be shortly taking a quick break. We're taking just a very, very short break. We're going to grab Michael Hamilton. We're going to do an interview with him, get his thoughts on the matchup and get his thoughts on that game. Then we're going to do some final giveaways, and then we will be signing off from the calling, but not quite yet. Don't go anywhere. Let's hear from the man himself. We'll see you shortly. Welcome back, everyone, to the Calling Indianapolis. We have the man himself, the man of the hour. We got the world champ in the house. Michael, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. My second of all, how dare you? What are we doing here with all this Iyslander domination? No. I kid. So there's a lot to talk about this game. I do have some questions I want to ask you, but first, if you don't mind, just give me your kind of initial thoughts after winning the Calling and that match in general.
So the last match, I got beat up really badly in Swiss. I tried to second cycle all the Frost Hexes and like don't play any Frost Hexes out, and I played a bunch of Insidious Chills out first cycle, but I ended up not leaking any damage because he has like a bunch of Oasis Respites and Steadfast and stuff. So even when I would have the chill set up plus Aether Ice Vein, it wasn't leaking that much damage. So when I drew the first Frost Hex this game, or in the game, I'm like, maybe I just do Frost Hexes first cycle and then try to set up the Insidious Chill stuff second cycle or whenever we get there if he blows up my Frost Hexes. So I arsenaled the first Frost Hex, and then I very quickly found the second Frost Hex, which was very lucky.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And then I found the third Frost Hex also pretty early. So I feel just very lucky. The Warhorn was like very close to the bottom of his deck. My Frost Hexes were all in the top half. Just everything worked out very well for
absolutely.
me.
I love the way you said that. In the game, you thought as you drew the first Frost Hex, like, you know what? I'm gonna try it like this. And we were speculating because you said on your podcast a couple times, like, you know, when you played like the Kano matchup or the Dory matchup sometimes in the Team Cup, you saw it in the podcast, like, oh yeah, I had never really played this matchup, so I was figuring it out as I went. And as we were playing, I'm like, this man might be figuring it out as he goes. He might be, you know, like making a new strategy. So that's really interesting to see. So by pitching the Insidious Chills early, were you attempting to like safeguard against the value of the Warhorn, or was it just like a in-game decision, like, I think the Frost Hexes are going to be more valuable right now?
Well, it was I think the first one I pitched, my hand was like 3 reds Insidious Chill, and like the only way to have my hand do anything was to pitch the Insidious Chill. So I kind of felt like I had to, and I didn't think like there was that much value in like the second and third Insidious Chill. The first one's the best one, the second one's pretty good, the third one's like whatever. Doesn't really matter.
100%.
So I wasn't really worried about second cycling one, and then I think I saw the second one kind of early too. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly, but I was kind of like, when I pitched the first one, I'm like, what if we, I started thinking about the Frost Hex then.
Yeah.
And it just worked out really well. I was like, if I'm second cycling the Insidious Chills, I second cycle the Ice Veins, and I do the physical attacks plus Frost Hex arcane damage stuff.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask you next. So in place of the Insidious Chill, it seemed like you were looking at the physical damage as a way to kind of clear the hand in place of the hand taxing effects. Was that the line of thought process, knowing that Charles Dunn had a propensity to be blocking these physical attacks? Was that kind of where you wanted to get the hand taxing effect from?
Yeah, and it can be kind of rough to do that against Oldhim because if you like attack with a physical attack and you have 1 card in hand, no card in arsenal, they can ice react and you don't get an arsenal, and then you like lose your back-to-back pressure. But if you already have your card in arsenal,
it's already sitting there.
Set, then the physical attacks work just as well as the Aether Ice Veins.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were laughing. We were like, there's supposed to be a process to this. There's supposed to be Insidious Chills, and then you get the hand tax that first Ice Eternal. Jaws just were like, oh, that's going to be a lot of damage. And then the second one, it just seemed like out of nowhere. It's like, wait, I thought that this game was going to be longer.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. Now, a couple more questions for you before you get off to your revelry and your celebrating. How did you feel into the Oldhims at the event in total? There were so many in the top 8. We felt as though an Oldhim was going to be walking out of here with the win, and we can't count on Iyslander when you're out here in the top 8 at the 2 seed. But I'm curious about how you felt into Oldhim in general in this meta.
So, before, with Whale and Amulet still in the game, I think Whale made that matchup really hard because they had like a really high ice count, so they had ice react you a lot. They'd swing the Frosty Hammer for 4, which was an awkward breakpoint. You have no blocking equipment. You just always get the stupid Frostbite, and then your 3 for 8s don't work anymore because you have a Frostbite.
Yeah.
So before, I think the matchup was like slightly Oldhim favored, and now I think losing Amulet was it mattered less than losing Whale, I think, in the matchup. And also like the amount of blue cards they play that are not ice means it's harder for them to ice react you now because they have less ice cards.
Totally.
Because they have to have things that swing the Titans.
Yeah, we were noticing that. We were wondering if the less ice cards were going to make these ice reacts hard to come by or harder to come by. There were a couple times where we were talking about, oh, this ice react could be punishing, but the Oldhim just didn't have it.
Yeah.
Do you and Roger still think that Oldhim is like a tier D hero? I gotta ask.
I feel like we kind of like got shown up.
Got carried away with the winner's will.
I still think Oldhim was the best hero. I think Oldhim was better than Iyslander probably. And now I think Oldhim is worse than Iyslander.
Interesting.
But not by a lot. I think he's
Yeah.
a lot better than we gave him credit for in the podcast.
Yeah, but maybe just a tid.
5 out of the top 8's a pretty good showing, you know.
Maybe just a smidge. Yeah. All right. Is there any other final thoughts you have? Anybody you want to thank? Anybody you want to, you know? Oh, we got you. And as we show off the trophy, you want to give the people what they want here?
Okay, I'll show off the trophy. Here is the trophy.
Yeah. Come on.
And
Look at that,
got it.
man. Oh, we got some. Yeah, pretty good. Big Crown of Providence. We also had another little soundbite that we were playing. We honestly kind of criminally underused it, but every now and then when an interesting decision point come up, the audience would just hear.
Flesh and blood is hard.
It is.
It is. That's what I was saying. I was like, it is hard.
That's why the game's so good.
Hey, right? That's why we love it. That's why we love it. Yeah, so any final thoughts? Anyone you want to thank before we get out of here?
I always think, I've been thanking Roger at the end of each of these podcasts, and I've realized, or not podcasts, the interviews.
Yeah.
Moments like these. And I'm like, maybe I should thank my wife. She was really supportive. I got to sleep at home in bed with her last night.
Yeah.
So, shout outs to my wife, Casey, who is wonderful and very supportive.
Big
And
shout outs to Casey.
She's great.
I know you're stoked right now. All right, man. Well,
Roger's cool too.
what'd you say?
I said, and Roger's cool
Yeah,
too.
Roger's great too. Give that mom. I mean, that was incredible. Well, dude, once again, congratulations. We're going to do some giveaways. We're going to see Mansan in just a moment. So thank you again for the interview and go enjoy that gold foil. I mean, it must be pretty cool winning a big event. I know it's a pretty new feeling for you. So I really hope, I hope you just live it up today.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Cheers, dude. Congrats again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's just going to take the headset over there.
Hell out of the way.
Good job, Michael, of course.
Let's go!
All right. Good job. Good job, Sam. I don't know if you're hearing me, Sam.
I hear you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Great job, Sam. That was a wonderful interview. Great job to Michael. Great job to everyone viewing. We're going to wrap up with those giveaways. And guess what? Hamilton was, once again, the match that we had on camera and the one who won the whole thing. So why not type his name, spam it in the chat to go ahead and give out these last 3 Dragon Shield giveaways. Reminder, these things are $20 vouchers with free shipping that you can use on either their North American or European web shops. So I'm going to draw some winners just in a second so that we can go ahead and wrap things up. And if you win, type !winner that you can see down there, and it'll show you everything you need to know to get in touch with me to go ahead and give you these amazing prizes. Matt. Oh, never mind. He's busy talking to the champ. I get it. But Matt is wearing a Team Dragon Shield jersey, and they're also one of the sponsors of the stream. How cool is that? He's trying to hide.
Ooh.
He's trying to hide. But it's right there. You see it. You see it. All right, let's do a giveaway right now. Damn, I just got ignored by Matt Rogers. This is not the way to end the stream. All right, let's roll for giveaway winner number 1. We've got JN. Just JN. All right, so you have won. It's going to say it in the giveaway, in the chat itself that you won. So go ahead, type !winner. !winner is going to give you the information you need to go ahead and get in touch with me to get you these sleeves. So well done. Also, Sam, you're still coming through, so if you want to take that off. All right, because we're trying to wrap things here, let's do another one. JN, I haven't seen you type anything. We are on a little bit of a delay, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But either way, we'll just see who gets in touch. Next one here. Spencer Reed. Spencer Reed. Sounds like a very familiar name. I might know you. I don't know. Maybe I just know a lot of Spencers. But you won the second giveaway, so you should see it in the chat. Nightbot should have told you that you won. Go ahead, type !winner, and you'll get all the information you need to go ahead and get this voucher to you. And then the last one. All right, well, everyone's busy behind me. I was going to get Michael Hamilton to roll this last one. Let's get Pankaj over. Pankaj over here. Go ahead, roll this last winner.
All right, I'm going to rig.
Just so no one can say it's rigged. Roll this last winner.
Rigged.
And we've got Martin Cox as the last. I don't know. Do you know? No, that's not rigged at all. Oh, he is? Oh, it is rigged. No way. That's a local to Pankaj. Insane. Insane. Wait, is he really?
I'm pretty sure this is Martin.
Wow. Okay, we're getting confirmation that this is actually a totally rigged system. This is like a good friend of Pankaj over there. Crazy. So there you go. That's the 3 winners that are going to wrap things up here. So congratulations, everybody. We're going to let this roll a little bit longer just so that, it catches up because there's about a minute delay. We're going to roll some outro. And then, hey, thanks for being here. This was incredible. This is unofficial community coverage brought to you by LSS, brought to you by the Tavern Brawlers, brought to you by Dragon Shield, and all the lovely people around me. Thank you so much for being here. It has been incredible. We are gonna, what's up? Oh yeah, come, let's do group hugs, group huddles, group huddles, group huddles, as we say goodbye to the stream. Goodbye everyone, but I still need a free hand to click the next thing. So much stronger. Hey.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. Oh, we're going to Worlds! Come on, baby. Oh wait, this music's probably copyrighted. Oh yeah.
We are submitted.
Almost, still working it out.
Mr. Sleepy.
Everybody was Mr. Sleepy. Ross Taper done.
Mask of COVID.
Denmark.
USA.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are the countries represented at the World Championships. Give one more round of applause, please.
All right, Sam, how we doing? How you feeling? Game-wise, I feel like I'm ready to play a good game. Okay. Everything's up in the air, though. Like, I have so no idea what to expect. Heading into our first, what is this, the Daily Double Classic Constructed. We were outside the convention center. I did pretty good today. And then I lost 3 in a row, but I got the last one. Sam? Yes. We need cash for more cards. We do need some cash for more cards. Wait, it's just Sam cheated. He said he won when he didn't, and he stole tickets from from a beautiful young woman. All right, that's not what happened. I don't really know how I ended up with 300 tickets, but I'm gonna find her and give her the tickets back. Unless
It's one of the few cold pools we can sell as a token as well.
Oh, nice.
So, one of the few, because it's not a...
My name's Jacob Bertrand. Probably know.